Okay, welcome everyone to our August 15th, 2023 virtual meeting or in-person hybrid. It's 9:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to start off with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty's First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Othelay, and Georgina Island First Nations. The Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty's First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of the lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Thank you. I will ask everyone to turn their cell phones off or place them on vibrate so it doesn't disturb the meeting. And I'll remind council of declaration if you can or interest if it arises. You can declare it then, or if you have something now, you can declare it now. I have no letters before us that state any conflict of interest. So we have minutes here from the special council meeting July 18th, 2023. All in order. I'll look for a motion to receive them. Moved by Councillor Clement. Seconders. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. We have four zoning bylaw amendments. So I'll look for a motion to do the public meeting for zoning bylaws. Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we have four of them here. I'm gonna do the preamble for the first one, and then the rest I'll just introduce the application. So our first application here for zoning bylaw amendment. Oh, motion to go into. So I did that. Okay. Our first application here is Moya Toma, and it's 2866998 Ontario Limited. This is the statutory meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act. The owner applicant is Moya Toma. Hope I'm saying that right. The property is described as Plan 12, Lot 179 in the village of Havelock, known municipally as 5 George Street West, having a property roll number of 153100200205500. And this next part that I'm going to read goes for all of them. Any person may attend the public meeting and or make verbal or written representation either in support or in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please keep your video off and microphone muted during the meeting until I invite you for comments or with regards to the matter. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen or the proposed zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. If you wish to be notified of the passing of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make written requests to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. So with that, I'll turn it over to Arya, who is a guest. Actually, he's had a wedding to attend, so he's going to do it virtually today. Welcome, Arya.
Thank you, members of council. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes,
awesome. Through to you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, council. So the purpose and effect of this report is for the presentation the consideration and requisite approval of council and application to amend the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw 1995-42 as amended in order to permit the addition of an accessory dwelling unit within a portion of a commercial building while also introducing certain site-specific regulations. So the recommendation of my report is that subject to any new information or public comments received prior to or at the statutory public meeting, the draft bylaw be passed as presented. So just a way of background, as proposed, the development on the subject property will consist of an additional accessory dwelling unit within a portion of the commercial building. It will be on the upstairs level. The property is currently developed with an existing building comprised of commercial uses on the ground floor and residential uses above. The entire commercial building is serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewers. I won't repeat what the mayor said in way of the owner of the property. The property description is Plan 12, Lot 179, S-S, George Street West, Village of Havelock. The municipal address is 5 George Street West, and the assessment roll number is 1531-020-002-05500. And the type of planning approval being sought today is under Section 34 of the Planning Act. A site visit was conducted by Township staff on 2 separate occasions, the first one being May 12th, 2023, and there are no other planning applications as it relates to the subject property. So the proposed development. The applicants have filed for zoning bylaw amendment application under Section 34 of the Planning Act and are requesting permission of council to split an existing accessory residential dwelling unit inside of a portion of a commercial building, effectively increasing the number of dwelling units from 4 units to a maximum of 5 units. None of the setbacks as it pertains to lot lines are being reduced beyond their existing conditions, and all construction is taking place within the existing building. The new dwelling unit will likely require municipal connection to water and as well as municipal sanitary sewer services, and a building permit will be required from the chief building official of the township for any form of construction taking place. 1 additional residential parking space will be added to the rear of the existing building to accommodate the new accessory dwelling unit. No additional structures are being added, which would have the effect of increasing lot coverage on the subject lot, and all parking and as well as loading requirements are subject to the provisions as outlined in the applicable zone of the zoning bylaw. So just a little bit of discussion with regards to the growth plan as well as the provincial policy statements. According to the PPS, which is referred to as the provincial policy statement, the subject property is deemed to be within a settlement area. The PPS directs the settlement areas are to be the focus of growth, and their vitality and regeneration shall be promoted, as these areas are critical for the long-term economic prosperity of a community. Land use patterns are to include a mixture of land uses that are deemed appropriate, together with the efficient use and management of land, infrastructure, and public services facilities, which further avoid uneconomical expansions. Insofar as the proposed amendment would not represent a change in land use, nor any further expansion of the existing commercial building, it would otherwise contribute to the continuance of a strong community within the village of Havelock. Additionally, the proposed amendment would result in an increase in rental housing across the settlement area. Therefore, the subject application is consistent with the relevant policies as outlined in the provincial policy statements. The intent of the growth plan, just to flip over there, is to guide municipal planning authorities by setting a broad framework for growth management and environmental protection in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The growth plan builds upon and is reflective of the policies of the PPS. As with the PPS, growth is to be allocated to the settlement area boundaries. The plan also provides for protection of natural heritage features within what is referred to as a natural heritage system, as well as key hydrologic features. So the subject property is not within the natural heritage system as outlined under the growth plan, and generally is not subject to the related policies as the property is actually within a settlement area boundary. So the purpose of this application is to increase the number of accessory dwelling units within a commercial building. The existing building footprint is being maintained with no exterior side alterations being proposed. Therefore, the application conforms or maintains consistency with the growth plan. So in terms of the County of Peterborough's official plan, the subject property is designated again in the settlement area. Objectives for the settlement area, among other things, promoting the role of settlement areas as primary employment centers, as well as a location for commercial and industrial uses, and to plan for related land and infrastructure requirements. The proposed amendment will serve to increase the number of accessory dwelling units inside a portion of a commercial building from 4 existing units to 5. The amendment will serve to permit the continued use of commercial businesses on the ground floor of the existing building, as well as residential uses above. Therefore, in a general sense, the application conforms to the County of Peterborough's official plan policies. Now, in terms of the township's official plan, the entirety of the property is designated as a hamlet urban area commercial. It's serviced by both, again, municipal water and sanitary sewers. Under this designation, those which are normally associated with quote unquote downtown areas, which provide for the sale of goods and services to meet the needs of the community. Professional businesses and commercial establishments are permitted uses within the hamlet area, more particularly in the commercial designation. The uses on the ground floor of the existing building are captured under the permitted uses of this designation. Additionally, a residence in a part of a permitted use or an apartment above a commercial use, with the exception when the use is a service station for vehicles and established servicing stations, shall not be permitted if it is those types of uses. The proposed amendment do not conflict with the policies of this designation and are considered intensification, typically associated with denser mixed-use oriented downtown areas. Therefore, in consideration of the above, it is the township's planning opinion that the application meets the spirit and intent of the township's official plan. Just switching over to the zoning bylaw, according to Schedule A1 of the bylaw number 1995-42, the subject property is currently zoned local commercial, which is C1 zone. The application presently before council's consideration and in accordance with the attached bylaw will serve to rezone the land to Special District 267. And the Special District 267 is mainly just a site-specific zoning tailored to the development. As such, the development within the Special District 267 zone will be required to conform with the policies and provisions, the provisions as they apply to the local commercial 1 zone as well. C1 zone permits one accessory dwelling unit in a portion of a commercial building, with the exception of obviously a motor vehicle servicing and sales operation. The Special District 267 zone will legally recognize up to 5, maximum of 5 accessory dwelling units in a portion of a commercial building, with a minimum floor area of 37 square meters, which roughly translates to about 400 square feet. Additionally, further regulations are added to ensure that the ground floor area of the existing building shall be used primarily for commercial purposes in conformity with both the official plan as well as the community improvement plan. Under section 4.27 of the zoning bylaw, each lot is to incorporate minimum parking standards for each individual use. Similarly, provisions also apply to loading spaces under section 4.19 of the zoning bylaw. As the existing structure was built way before the current zoning regulations came into effect, the parking and loading spaces are considered legal non-conforming, and therefore no increase of a deficiency is to be permitted. And as the commercial uses are not being altered as a result of the approval of this application, no regulation changes are being proposed for the commercial parking as well as the loading requirements. However, the applicant is proposing one additional accessory dwelling, in accordance with the accessory dwelling unit, one additional parking space. As previously mentioned, no encroachment towards property lines are being proposed, and all construction is taking place on the existing commercial building footprint. So therefore, in conclusion, following our assessment and review of this application, it is the township's planning opinion that the subject application conforms to the growth plan, the County of Peterborough's official plan, the township's official plan, as well as the zoning bylaw, and is consistent with the provincial policy statement. I do want to make some notes on the deferral of this application. This is a deferred application. Therefore, during the June 20th statutory public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act, a member of council requested information for the applicant or from the applicant as to whether an existing residential unit on the ground floor of the commercial building did exist. Upon suggestion from the applicant that there was no residential use on the bottom floor, council deferred the application until a site visit was completed. A site visit was subsequently conducted by township staff on June 23rd, 2023, which did identify the presence of a residential use on the bottom floor of the commercial building. there had been previous indication that that ground floor area was primarily for commercial uses, and considering the alteration of the commercial space had been converted to a residential space in accordance with Ontario Building Code, an order to comply was issued on the subject property. The township staff advised the applicant that in order for him to maintain the residential unit on the ground floor area, further planning approvals would be required, and that would be inclusive of a record of site condition. The applicant further advised township staff in writing on July 22nd via email that he or she intends on converting the residential space on the bottom floor back to a commercial use. Therefore, in consideration of the above, township staff are prepared to recommend approval of the subject application, and further processes that are administered under the Ontario Building Code would ensure that the residential unit on the ground floor is converted back to a commercial use. And that concludes my report to council.
Okay, thank you, Arya. So the way this works now, I'll be going into ask in opposition in favor with the public, and then we'll move on. So for the first time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? And the third time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? I'm not sure if the applicant's here. And they had anything to add, but seeing none. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? Third time, anybody wishing to speak in favor? Okay, so we do have a recommendation here that's subject to any new information or comments received prior to the statutory meeting, the draft bylaw be passed as presented and that the balance of the report be received. So I'll open up to council with some thoughts here.
Questions?
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Arya, how many rental spaces are there in the building right now?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. What we currently know is that there are 4 residential uses on the top floor currently. There are, in accordance with the site plan that was submitted, 2 commercial uses on the bottom. I do believe that there is 1 residential use on the bottom floor, which is to be reverted back to a commercial use. So therefore, in total right now, there's 5 residential uses right now. 1 is going to be converted back to a commercial space, and the top floor currently has 4.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor. The fact that we were told that there was not a living space, I guess, in the basement, it was supposed to be a commercial space, and then we found out there is one, is quite concerning to me moving forward. I mean, what's the outcome of that? Is there some kind of penalty for the applicant here, or because it seems to me like we've been lied to in a way? So to Ari or Travis, I'm just saying, is there a penalty that this applicant is going to have to pay for, you know, obviously misrepresenting himself or the application?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, I would believe that so the subject application is for the use of the top floor residential uses, and I believe under the Ontario Building Code process, the residential use on the bottom floor could be addressed, which I will air to Travis to provide more information on.
Travis.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the illegal unit on the main floor, we've issued an order to comply for the illegal construction. So he's going to have to get a building permit to convert that back to the commercial use. The only penalty we have is fees will be doubled for the building permit application.
Thank you, Travis.
All right, then. Is there any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Why are we changing the zoning and then having him reduce the residential space? Because maybe it's not, it's 267. You're changing it to, which allows residential on the ground floor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Or did I misinterpret?
The application is to go from 4 units on the upper floor to
Right.
5. The residential unit on the main floor is not permitted and will have to be converted back to commercial.
But with the, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, the July 20th, was it not there was no zoning change on that particular meeting, was there?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that it was a zoning bylaw amendment as well.
So we changed it to district then?
Yes. No, so that bylaw was not passed. What was proposed was Special District 267. It was deferred and now that's come back to council.
We may have a follow-up too is so, okay, so we got the order in. Are we going to allow the fifth unit until the sixth one is done or the ground floor? Or is that going to be in the future?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that through the zoning application, we can move forward, I believe, with permits on the top floor. And then the Ontario Building Code process would address the bottom floor. In terms of timelines, I'm not entirely sure how that process or how long that process takes.
So Travis, you can maybe help us with that part.
Sure, yeah, so with this one, we would have our 20-day appeal period if approved today, and then that we would be eligible to, he would be then eligible to apply for building permits, and we would issue permits in accordance with the zoning bylaw for the upper floor. The tenants on the main floor, it's my understanding they've been advised, and Mr. Toma told me verbally that sometime in September, they would be moving out, so we'll be able to go ahead with applications there as well. So Mr. Toma wrote this today.
No. So. Okay. Any other questions around this? Okay, so there is a recommendation there. I don't know if council is comfortable with it.
Through you, Mayor. So I talked to area yesterday. My understanding is these are to be considered two separate things. The upstairs is what we're doing today.
Yeah.
You're looking after the lower level. The building permits and stuff. The bottom floor is a separate issue. This is strictly for the second floor, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it is.
Okay, so
So what's council's thoughts? There's a recommendation here. What's that? Yeah, we have to ask the, or the balance of the report we received that. It's gonna come to the bylaw thing, so the recommendation, if you don't want to pass it, you can just say deny it. Or the recommendation is that that the draft bylaw be passed as presented and that the balance of the report be received. So if you want to change that, you can change it, it's up to you.
Through you, Mayor Martin, if council wishes, you can simply receive the report.
So.
through you, Mayor, we'll receive the report. I'll move that we receive the report. We do need more housing, and this is only the second floor that we're dealing with in this bylaw.
Okay, so you're receiving the report, but the draft, what about the other part of it? Do you want to, so to do that, you would have to have the whole works there in the draft bylaw be passed as presented?
Well, like I've looked through it numerous times, like I said, I talked to area yesterday, and they are recommending that the second floor. It's fine.
Okay,
I will move it.
Through you, Mayor Martin, the bylaw will be dealt with when we exit the.
yeah.
Oh,
This is just that, okay.
Okay.
So, all right then, so
I'll move.
you're moving that we receive this and you're seconding receiving it, Deputy Mayor Webb. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, and that's carried. And there is almost 20 people online too, just so you think we're not looking, there's not just few here, so that's why when we're looking on here, there is quite a few online today. So, all right, so we'll move into the next zoning bylaw amendment. This is for Melody Yatch and Philip Stoker. And this is statutory public meeting held under section 34 of the Planning Act. The owners applicants are Melanie Yatch. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Philip Soper. The property is described as part of lot 10 and 11, plan 6, lot 8 and 8A in section 9, known municipally as 56 Fire Road 91A, having a property roll number of 1531010009270. Like I said before, any person may attend this meeting and make written or verbal comment. So I'll turn it over to Arya.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the purpose and effect of this report is to present for the consideration and requisite approval of council an application to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 1995-42 as amended in order to permit the redevelopment of a new detached or a new single detached seasonal recreational dwelling unit while also introducing certain site-specific regulations. The recommendation of my report is that subject to any new information or public comments received prior to or at the statutory public meeting, the draft bylaw be passed as presented. So just a little bit of background information. The owners of the property are Melanie Yak and Philip Soper. The property description is part lots 10 and 11, Plan 6, Lot 8, and Lot 8A, Concession 9, municipal address of 56 Fire Road 91A in the Methuen ward. The type of planning approval being sought today is Section 34 of the Planning Act. And in terms of the subject lands, it's comprised of approximately 0.3 hectares, which roughly translates to about 0.9 acres, with frontage along Cashbog Lake. There's currently an existing recreational dwelling unit on the subject lands comprising a total gross floor area of 150 square meters, which roughly translates to about 1,600 square feet. Property assessment data provided by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation indicates the presence of an existing boathouse and a legal non-complying sleeping cabin. The single detached recreational dwelling unit is presently serviced by an existing septic system located just southeast of the dwelling unit. The applicants are proposing to construct a new septic system further back from the shoreline as well as in the rear yard. The total existing lot coverage is approximately, or is currently 6.21%. The total proposed lot coverage will be roughly 12.43%, which is a total increase of approximately 6.22%. Just a little bit on the proposed redevelopment. The applicants are requesting permission to redevelop the subject property by constructing a new recreational dwelling unit as well as an attached garage. A demolition permit will be required to remove the existing structures to make room for the development mentioned above. As proposed, the new recreational dwelling unit, inclusive of all decks and porches, will have a gross floor area of approximately 379 square meters, which roughly translates to about 4,000 square feet. The height of the proposed recreational dwelling unit will be it's indicated in the application, 9.75 meters, which is roughly around 32 feet. As previously mentioned, the development will result in a net increase in total lot coverage from 6.21% to 12.43%, which will be within the allocated or the allotted 15% lot coverage afforded to the zone of the property, which is seasonal residential. This application presently before council must maintain conformity with the provincial policy statements, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the township and county's official plan, as well as the township zoning bylaw. Both the growth plan and the provincial policy statement, which we refer to as a PPS in the industry, permit resource-based and residential development within rural areas, while also including policies to protect significant natural heritage features. Section 2.2.9.4 of the growth plan stipulates that resource-based development within rural areas must be compatible with surrounding rural landscapes, as well as the scale, character, and capacity of the resource. Further, section 4.2.4.5 permits infill development within the 30-meter vegetation protection zone of a lake, provided the development restores to the maximum extent possible the ecological functions of the developed shoreline. While the proposed development is taking place marginally on the existing building footprint, no reductions in the high watermark setback standards are being proposed. The approval of this application will serve to increase the high watermark setback, bringing the development into further conformity with the growth plan as well as the PPS. Therefore, there is maintaining consistency. Just a little bit about the County of Peterborough's official plan. According to the county's official plan, the site is designated as shoreland areas and the waterfront. Policies of the county's official plan permit residential land uses within these shoreland areas, while also encouraging the protection and restoration of natural heritage features. The plan states that the built form along the shoreline should not dominate the natural form and encourage the provision of access to the waterfront for public and private users, whichever obviously is appropriate. Based on the site visit conducted by Township staff, it has been determined that the proposed development is taking place on a portion of the property that is partially free of natural vegetation. Additionally, the general location of the proposed cottage is taking place in an area of the property that is already disturbed by development as well. And while the development of the lot in the form of the proposed recreational dwelling unit is taking place within the high watermark setback, the portion of the property adjacent to the shoreline area is heavily treed and therefore would not pose any major visual effects. Based on the analysis above, it's the Township's planning opinion that the proposed development generally conforms to the spirit and intent of the county's official plan. So just a little bit about the Township's official plan. The subject property is designated shoreline in the Township's official plan. The Township's OP recognizes permanent as well as recreational dwelling units as permitted uses in the shoreline designation. Section 3.3.4.1B2 and 3 of the Township's OP states that minor variances and zoning changes to accommodate proposed expansions of a structurally permanent nature to existing structures that further reduce any minimum high watermark setback shall not be permitted unless it's a matter of public health. Furthermore, on existing lots of record where it is not achievable to maintain that 30-meter setback, new buildings shall be set back as far as possible from the high watermark. So the proposed development of the existing recreational dwelling unit will be taking place within the 30-meter high watermark setback off Cashbog Lake. And this is mainly due to topographic considerations and site-specific constraints. The local conservation authority has been consulted in relation to this redevelopment from a flood hazard as well as emergency management perspective. A scope natural heritage evaluation was not required, seeing as the development conforms with the growth plan and the scale of the development was not considered overdevelopment. And while the size of the new recreational dwelling unit is larger than the existing dwelling, the proposed dwelling unit or the proposed development serves to improve the subject site by relocating the new structure further away from lot line boundaries, creating conformity with the zoning bylaw, as well as the septic system, which is currently based off the site plan. It is actually in front of the structure, is now being pushed further back. So therefore, it is the Township's planning opinion that the application meets the spirit and intent of the Township's OP. And finally, the zoning bylaw, according to the zoning Schedule A1 of bylaw number 1995-42, the subject property is currently zoned seasonal residential. If approved, the application will serve to rezone the subject lot to Special District 271 zone. This will also, the Special District 271 zone will also introduce certain site-specific regulations for the redevelopment of the seasonal recreational dwelling unit. Accordingly, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment being submitted for Township's consideration, again, includes site-specific setbacks and other provisions intended to legally permit those reduced setbacks. As previously mentioned, the entire dwelling unit will be pushed further back from the shoreline and as well as from Cashbog Lake, as well as the westerly side lot line. Therefore, all of the provisions and regulations, except outside of the ones in the bylaw, as they apply to the seasonal residential zone, are being maintained. The northerly portion of the subject lot will be unaltered. It will just be left as is in accordance with the provisions of the seasonal residential zone. Therefore, following our analysis and assessment of this application within the context of all the relevant land use planning policies, it is the Township's planning opinion that the subject application conforms to the growth plan, the county's official plan, the Township's OP, as well as maintaining consistency with the zoning bylaw. And that concludes my report to council.
All right, thank you, Aria. So I'm going to ask, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? And the third time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? I do see the applicant on here. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melanie Yaw. I'm one of the co-owners of the property. I have nothing to add. I was simply online to observe. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Second time, anybody wishing to speak in favor of the application? Third
Through you,
time.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
it's Holly Richards Conley. I'm the agent on the file. I just wanted to add a few small additional items. We have already submitted our application to Peterborough Public Health for the new septic system, and they've approved it pending the approval of council this morning. And we have also submitted our permit to Crow Valley for approvals for this project as well.
Okay, thank you. So third time, anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, I'll open it up to council. What's your thoughts here? Anything? There is a recommendation here if you. Yeah.
I just have a question, because I see there's a road allowance there that runs between cottage and the water. No, I get that. I apologize.
Okay. All right then. So the recommendation is here, if anybody. Recommendation moved by Deputy Mayor Webb that we move this recommendation. Seconded by Councillor Clement. Any other questions? All in favor? Not carried. Good. Okay, so the third application here is zoning bylaw amendment for Mary Thompson. This is a statutory public meeting held under section 34 of the Planning Act. The owner applicant is Mary Thompson. The property is described as part of lot 13, concession 5, known municipally as 340 Mile of Memories, having a property roll number of 1531010033150. I'll turn it over to Arya.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, council. So the purpose of the and effect of this report is to present for the consideration and requisite approval of council an application to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 1995-42 as amended in order to permit the redevelopment of a new detached seasonal recreational dwelling unit while also introducing certain site-specific regulations. This is a resubmission of a previous zoning bylaw amendment application, which was sought in, I believe it was April of 2023. And the recommendation on my report is that subject to any new information or public comments received prior to or at the statutory public meeting, the draft bylaw be passed as presented. Just a way of the background of this property, the owner is Mary Thompson, property description, part lot 13, registered plan 45R 8587, part 1, concession 5. That municipal address is 340 Mile of Memories in the Belmont ward. The type of planning application or the type of planning approval being sought today is section 34 of the Planning Act. A site visit was conducted by Township staff back in March 8th of 2023. And as previously mentioned, there was a previous zoning bylaw amendment application that gave effect to Special District 262. That bylaw is being repealed in favor of this one. So the proposed development, the applicants are requesting permission to redevelop the subject property by constructing a new recreational dwelling unit with an abutting covered porch, as well as an attached garage. The demolition permit will be required to remove the existing dwelling unit to make room for the development mentioned above. As proposed, the new recreational dwelling unit is accompanying porches and attached garages, which will have a gross floor area of approximately 203 square meters, which roughly translates to about 2,191 square feet. The height of the proposed recreational dwelling unit will be less than the allocated 9 meters, which is 30 feet, afforded to the seasonal residential zone. As proposed, the development will result in a net increase in the total lot coverage from 4.14% to 9.03%, which will be well within the allotted 15% coverage under the seasonal residential zone. As previously mentioned, this application will have no effect on any existing accessory structure or building on the subject property and will serve to maintain the existing high water mark setback. The applicants had applied for a zoning bylaw amendment back in April 2023 by virtue of bylaw number 2023-026. The property was rezoned to Special District 262, which permitted the redevelopment of an existing recreational dwelling unit. So during the permit process, the agent for the applicants determined that the site plan submitted as part of bylaw number 2023-026 was no longer feasible due to topographic constraints. Therefore, the applicants have applied for a resubmission for a zoning bylaw amendment in order to revise the site plan and resubmit an application that will likely pass permit approvals. Again, this application must maintain conformity with all the relevant land use planning documents, the PPS as well as the growth plan included. The PPS is again, just to reiterate some of the information, is a land use planning policy document issued under Section 3 of the Planning Act. Under the PPS, resource-based recreational development within rural areas are permitted, and however, they must ensure the protection of significant natural heritage features. Similarly, the growth plan permits resource-based recreational uses in rural areas subject to Section 4 of the plan. Both documents also permit accessory uses alongside primary existing structures, provided the development is not within any key natural heritage feature or hydrologic feature. As proposed, the new recreational dwelling unit will not reduce the existing high watermark setback standards, and therefore it is not anticipated to result in any negative impacts towards the shoreline. Additionally, a site visit was conducted by Township staff, which determined a lining of trees on the shoreline, greatly reducing the structure's exposure to Belmont Lake. Therefore, this application maintains consistency with provincial policies as it pertains to planning. According to the County of Peterborough's official plan, and this is just to talk a little bit about the county's OP, the site is designated also as shoreland areas and the waterfront, which is a resource-based use. Policies of the county official plan permit residential uses within the shoreline area while also encouraging the protection and restoration of natural heritage features. The plan states that the built form along the shoreline shall not dominate the natural form and encourage the provision of access to the waterfront for public and private users. The proposed development is taking place on a portion of the property that is fairly flat. We determined this through a site visit and free of any natural vegetation. The location of the subject structure is currently, or the location of the proposed structure is already currently disturbed by an existing development, and a large portion of the new development will be taking place on the existing footprint of the current recreational dwelling unit. Furthermore, the site visit conducted on March 8, 2023 also determined that the proposed recreational dwelling unit will be fairly buffered, again, from those public views from Belmont Lake. It is the township's planning opinion that the application maintains conformity and is consistent with the intent of the county's official plan. Just a little bit on the township's official plan. The subject site is designated as shoreline. I don't want to reiterate the same information as the previous one, but the township's, as the previous application, but the township's official plan recognizes permanent as well as recreational cottages or dwelling units as permitted uses within the shoreline designation. As previously mentioned in this report, the redevelopment of the existing dwelling unit will take place within that 30-meter high watermark setback. And this is mainly due to lot size deficiencies, topographic difficulties, as well as some hydro easements towards the back. The local conservation authority proposed no concern for the development from a flood hazard and emergency management perspective. The proposed development serves to maintain the existing efficient high watermark setback at 10.51 meters from the shoreline of Belmont Lake. The proposed development is also not anticipated to result in any navigational, environmental, or visual impacts to the health of the shoreline. Therefore, this application does maintain consistency or conformity, I should say, with the township's official plan. And finally, the zoning bylaw. By virtue of bylaw number 2023-026, the property was rezoned from seasonal residential zone to special district 262. During the permit process, the agent for the applicant had determined that the site plan that was submitted as part of that bylaw was no longer feasible due to topographic constraints. Therefore, the applicants are required or were required to resubmit another zoning bylaw amendment application in order to revise the site plan and submit a new proposal. Accordingly, the subject property is currently, again, it is zoned Special District 262. If approved, the application will rezone the subject lot to Special District 273. And this would introduce certain site-specific regulations for the development of the seasonal recreational dwelling unit. And again, just to reiterate, all existing accessory uses will be maintained in their current setbacks or their certain standards. The application will further serve to permit the existing accessory structures with no alterations being proposed. Following our review and assessment of this application within the context of relevant land use planning policy documents, it is the Township's planning opinion that the subject application maintains conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the County of Peterborough's official plan, the Township's official plan, the Township's zoning bylaw regulations, as well as maintaining consistency with the provincial policy statements. Therefore, this application maintains conformity with all the relevant policies, and it is subject of council's approval. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, for the first time, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Third time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? All right, is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? I don't know if the applicant's here. Second time, anybody wishing to speak in favor? Third time, anybody wishing to speak in favor? Hearing none, I'll open up to council with your thoughts on this application. Councilor Clement?
I only have one question here. So I was reading back through again, they're not gonna do anything to the boathouse. It stays as is. It's gonna be basically grandfathered and stay as it is.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Webb.
Motion to approve and receive.
Okay. Moved by, the recommendation is moved by Deputy Mayor Webb. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Doherty, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so our final application here is Joshua Van Duzen. This is a statutory public meeting held under section 34 of the Planning Act. The owner applicant is Joshua Van Duzen. The property is described as part of lot 28, concession 2, known municipally as 438 Fire Road 54, having a roll number of 153101000629701. Another area.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the purpose and effect of this report is to present for the consideration and requisite approval of council an application to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 1995-42 as amended in order to permit the redevelopment of both a single detached recreational dwelling unit as well as a detached garage, while also introducing certain site-specific regulations. So the recommendation of my report is that subject to any new information or public comments received prior to or at the statutory public meeting, the draft bylaw be passed as presented. And just a way of background information on this property, the owner is on the assessment roll, it's Joshua Van Duzen, property description, part lot 28, registered plan 45R1612 parts 1 and 2. It's in concession 2. The municipal address is 438 Fire Route 54 in the Belmont ward. The type of planning approval being sought today is section 30 is under the Planning Act section 34, and a site visit was conducted on the subject property on July 25th, 2023. The property subject of this application is currently occupied by an existing recreational dwelling unit comprising a total floor area or gross floor area of 77 square meters, which roughly translates to about 826 square feet. There is also an existing detached garage and a plastic shed on the subject property. This application will result in the redevelopment of both the existing dwelling unit and detached garage, while no alterations are being proposed to the existing accessory frame shed. The total existing lot coverage is 7 points. The total existing lot coverage is 7.3%, and the proposed lot coverage after the redevelopment of the recreational dwelling unit and detached garage will bring the total to 9.8%. The current setback from the high watermark to the existing recreational dwelling unit is 17.9 meters, which roughly translates to about 58.9 feet. The proposed setback from the high water mark will serve to improve the existing standard on the property, as the new recreational dwelling unit will be set back a minimum of 19.7 meters, which roughly translates to about 64 feet. The proposed recreational dwelling unit will be serviced by an individual sewage system in the form of a septic system, currently, entirely outside the 30-meter high watermark setback. As for the proposed redevelopment, the applicants are requesting permission to redevelop the subject property by constructing a new recreational dwelling unit, as well as a detached garage. A demolition permit will be required to remove the existing structures to make room for the development mentioned above. As proposed, the new recreational, I already reiterated that information. So the application presently before council's consideration must maintain conformity to the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the County of Peterborough's official plan, as well as the Township's official plan. So both the growth plan and the provincial policy statement permit residential resource-based uses within the rural areas, while also introducing certain policies to protect significant natural heritage features. Under section 2.2.94 of the growth plan, this stipulates that under the section that resource-based development within the rural areas must be compatible with the surrounding rural landscape. Section 4.2 of the growth plan include policies that are intended to protect key hydrologic as well as natural heritage features. Section 4.2.4.1 of the growth plan states that outside of settlement areas, development will not be permitted within the 30-meter vegetation protection zone, and that's just fancy word for buffer of key natural heritage features, with the exceptions of the policies that are stipulated in the growth plan. So those other policies, in particular, section 4.2.4.5 of the growth plan permits infill development within the 30-meter vegetation protection zone, provided that the development restores to the maximum extent possible the ecological functions and features of the developed shoreline areas. The proposed development, while not being developed entirely within the existing building footprint, is being pushed back from the shoreline. There was a scoped environmental impact study conducted on the site, which acknowledges the increasing the current setback of the 30-meter. The EIS, essentially the scoped environmental study, acknowledges the reduced high watermark setback as opposed to requiring the meeting of that 30-meter setback. It is also conducive to point out that due to site-specific constraints and other natural heritage features located northeast of the subject property, the EIS concluded that maintaining the proposed setback will not pose any negative impacts on the natural heritage features. Therefore, a condition has been placed on the zone amendment application for the recommendations of the EIS to be included and adhered to in the development process. And assuming all these mitigation measures are to be incorporated, the development will not conflict with the growth plan nor the PPS. So just a little bit about the county's official plan. According to the county's official plan, the site is designated as shoreline areas on the waterfront. Policies of the county's official plan permit residential land uses within the shoreline areas, while also encouraging the protection and restoration of the natural heritage features. The plan states that the built form along the shoreline should not dominate the natural form and encourage provisions of access to the property to the shoreline from public as well as private users, whichever is appropriate, obviously. To mitigate the impacts of the proposed development to the shoreline, an EIS recommendation makes a set number of recommendations, which include a variety of measures to ensure that the integrity of the natural heritage features is not compromised by the proposed development. Some of these measures include sediment control measures, as well as no in-water works, a lot of stuff that could be captured under Conservation Authority permit approvals. Therefore, based on the analysis above, it is the Township's planning opinion that the proposed development generally conforms to the growth plan, the county's official plan. Just a little bit about the township's official plan. As previously mentioned, the development of the existing cottage will take place within 30 meters of the high watermark setback due to site-specific considerations. Therefore, the proposed location of the new recreational dwelling unit is justified from a planning perspective. Additionally, the proposed new recreational dwelling unit will be set back further than the existing recreational dwelling unit, and this would create a net improvement to the site. The applicants were also willing to engage in the services of a qualified ecologist to assess the impact of the development on the natural heritage and hydrologic features. DIS concluded that the proposed location of the new recreational dwelling unit is not anticipated to result in any detrimental effects on the natural heritage features, provided obviously the recommendations of the report are followed through with. Therefore, it is the township's planning opinion that the application maintains the spirit and intent of the township's OP. And finally, the zoning bylaw. According to Schedule A1 of bylaw number 1995-42 as amended, the subject property is currently zoned seasonal residential. If approved, the application will serve to rezone the subject lot to Special District 272. This will also introduce certain site-specific regulations. Accordingly, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment being submitted for council's consideration includes site-specific setbacks and other provisions intended to legally recognize reduced setbacks for the redevelopment. Therefore, following our review and assessment of this application within the context of relevant land use planning policies, it is the township's planning opinion that the subject application conforms to the growth plan, the county's official plan, the township's official plan, the regulations and provisions under the township zoning bylaw, as well as maintaining consistency with the growth plan, the provincial policy statement. And that concludes my report to council.
Okay, thank you, Arya. I didn't know whether the internet was going to hold up for you, but you made it through that part. So I'll ask you, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? And the third time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? I do see the applicant on here. I don't know whether you have anything to add.
Good morning, all. No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you all for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. All right, second time, anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? And third time, anybody wishing to speak in favor? All right, open up to council. What's your thoughts here? That's the others, other than it has the added recommendation of scoped environmental impact statement be implemented at the development stage and monitored through the process. So
Through you, Chair, I think it's just probably a typo, but is it the property located on Cordova Lake or Methuen Lake?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. It is on Cordova.
I didn't.
Cordova?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we should, I don't know whether it's important or not. We
Yeah.
145 just to change it to whatever.
So we can amend that. So what's your thoughts on the recommendation? We'll move it? Yeah. Okay, moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Clement, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay. All right then, so I'll that concludes the zoning bylaw amendments. I'll look for a vote back into open. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty, all in favor? And that's carried. So I just ask, we do have the bylaws here. If we could deal with them now and get them out of the way, that would help. What's your thoughts here? Is it okay to move ahead with that? Okay, so the first bylaw here is to change the zoning bylaw amendment for the village of Havelock local commercial C1 special districts. 267. What's your thought? It's the first bylaw on your application. And did we deferred that? No, we haven't. That's what's your thoughts on this part here? It's we just moved it out through the other process. Okay. So this is with regard to the 5 George Street.
Yes, we'll move that one. I moved it, yes.
Okay. All right, so I have a mover. Is there a seconder for this one? Okay, Councillor Flagler is seconding that. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the second bylaw here is to change the zoning bylaw with regards to you know, the Gopher and with regards to the new garage. And it's lot 10, concession 9, lot 8, plan 6. I have the bylaw number here with me, but I'll go on to the. So it's bylaw 2023-58. What's your thoughts on that one? Councillor Doherty? You want to move that?
Yeah.
Okay, moved by Councillor Doherty and seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Right? And the third zoning bylaw amendment is bylaw 2023-59, zoning bylaw amendment for Thompson. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. And the final zoning bylaw amendment is bylaw 2023-60, zoning bylaw amendment for Van Dusen. So moved by Councillor Doherty and seconded by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, and that concludes that part. I have had a request for a 5-minute recess before we move into the minor variances. So I'll let them take a 5-minute recess, and that's moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? Here. Okay, I'll look for a motion that we resume our meeting. Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're going to move into minor variances, and I'll with Deputy Mayor Webb in the chair, so I'll look for a motion to turn it over to him. Moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, take it over.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Committee of Adjustment. I call this public meeting to order and remind the members of the committee of the requirement to disclose any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof if the occasion arises. This meeting will be held under Section 45 of the Planning Act and its regulations. We'll now have our planning consultant area present the minor variance reports, which I believe we have 5 of today.
Through to the chair, application A12-23, which is a deferred application for applicant commonly referred to as Town and Country, owners of part lot 6, concession 8, having a municipal address of 14 Mary Street. The purpose of this minor variance application is to seek relief from section 14.2.1.1.52 of the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 1995-42 as amended to allow open space in the side yard of the subject property. This application will have the following effects, again, permitting, there's only one, permitting open storage in the side yard. The recommendation of this application, the recommendation of my report is that the minor variance application A12-23 be approved with the following conditions: that any new development meets setback requirements pertaining to hydro easements as well as sewage systems, that no form of storage, open storage, more specifically, be permitted contrary to any provincial act, as well as any municipal bylaw. Written confirmation from the Ministry of Transportation, commonly referred to as the MTO, be provided to the township, rectifying the entrance-related matters brought forward by MTO staff during their commentary on June 7th, 2023. Another condition is that any required building permit be issued within 18 months of the approval of this application and in accordance with the Ontario Building Code. As my report stipulates, the township has determined that the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance as prescribed under the Planning Act. It is also consistent with the provincial policy statement as well as the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Crow Valley Conservation Authority as well as the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority were both consulted on this application. No serious concerns were mentioned, and a source water protection notice was displayed on the subject property. The location of the proposed Yeah, so the location of the entirety of the open storage will be outside any form of flood hazard. On June 20th, however, 2023, the Committee of Adjustment decided to defer this application as there were pending Ministry of Transportation MTO related matters in relation to the existing driveways. The applicants, I do believe, have been working diligently with Township staff as well as MTO staff to rectify the matters. As per the attached email to this report that was provided by the applicants, the matters have been addressed in principle. Township staff did receive the correspondence that I did mention in my previous condition from the MTO in the form of a letter offering support for the application. Therefore, the subject application is appropriate for approval. And that concludes my report to the committee.
Thank you for that, Arya. Is the applicant or agent present with us today? No. Okay. Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? No comments or questions, so I'll open up the floor for any questions from the committee. Or a motion. Mayor Martin.
Yeah, so there's a lot of recommendations here, so I'll move the recommendation that application A1223 be approved with all the conditions provided there.
So we have a mover, Mayor Martin, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Comments or questions? All in favor of the motion? Thank you for that. We'll move on to our second minor variance. Scott Nichols, sorry.
Through to the chair, application A18-23 for applicant Scott Nichols, owner of part lot 13, concession 7. Thank you very much, Bianca. Having municipal address of 91 Fire Route 75J. The purpose and effect of this minor variance is to seek relief from section 4.37 of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw as amended to permit the development of a single-story addition to an existing recreational dwelling unit. This application will have the following effects, and it's only one: reducing the minimum required setback to the high water mark from 30 meters, or that translates to about 100 feet, to 25.4 meters, which translates to about 83.6 feet. The recommendation of my report is that application A18-23 be approved with the following conditions. Number one, that the development be completed in accordance with the site plan submitted. Number two, that the development meet all setback standards as it pertains to hydro easements as well as individual septic systems. Number three, that a 20-day appeal period lapse prior to the issuance of the building permit. Number four, that a building permit be issued within 18 months of the approval of this application. At the time of the writing of this report, no comments have been made from ratepayers in relation to the application. The subject application has been circulated to Crow Valley Conservation Authority as well as Peterborough Public Health. The applicant has begun consultation, and I do believe some of it has been concluded with both these agencies. Regardless, approvals from both will be required as part of the development process. As this application meets all four tests of a minor variance prescribed under the Planning Act, the application also conforms to the PPS and the growth plan. Considering this, it is my recommendation of this report that the application be approved, and that concludes my report to the committee.
Thank you for that, Arya. Once again, is the applicant or agent present with us today? We are. Yeah. State your name, sir.
Scott Nichols,
Scott Nichols.
Debbie Nichols.
Do you have any comments, sir?
No, we're just in favor of what Arya has said and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for that. Okay. Anyone, anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Hearing none, is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of the application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, I'll open up to the members of the committee for comments or questions. Anyone, motion, Mayor Martin?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve application A 1823 with all the conditions.
We have a motion from Mayor Martin, seconded by Councillor Clement. Comments or questions? No, all in favor? And that's passed. Thank you for that. We'll move on to our third minor variance, which is a call.
Through to the chair, application A19-23 for applicant John McCall, owner of part lot 10, registered plan 24R-13873, concession 11, having no current municipal address at this time. So the purpose and effect of this report or minor variance application, I should say, is just one, seek relief from section 6.2.6F of the zoning bylaw, which will have the following effects: reducing the minimum required floor area of a single-story dwelling unit from 97.5 square meters, which roughly translates to about 1,050 square feet, to 35.6 square meters, which roughly translates to about 384 square feet. The recommendation of my report, that minor variance application A19-23 to permit the development of a single-story dwelling unit less than the minimum required floor area as prescribed under section 6.2.6F of the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, 1995-42 as amended, be denied. As the information submitted is insufficient to review the subject application. I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about the background of this application. So the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is in receipt of a minor variance application under section 45 of the Planning Act in order to seek relief from the provisions and regulations of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. If approved, the variance would legally recognize the development of a single detached dwelling unit less than the prescribed minimum floor area prescribed under the rural zone, which is under section 6 of the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to develop what is referred to as quote unquote a tiny home with a total floor area of 35.6 square meters, which roughly translates to about 384 square feet. This would be a reduction in the permitted floor area of approximately 61.8 square meters, which is a difference of about 666 square feet. In 2022, Township staff became aware that a structure had been erected or moved onto the subject property without the benefit of a building permit. As such, a letter from the Township staff was a letter from Township staff was provided to the owner of the subject property on March 6, 2023, indicating that the offending structure warranted a valid building permit to be considered a legal structure. The offending structure was less than the minimum floor area requirements prescribed under section 6, which is the rural zone. Furthermore, as per section 4.1F of the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, no accessory structure can be erected without first establishing a principal use. Therefore, a planning application would be, or an application under the Planning Act would be required for the erection of this structure. Architectural and structural renderings were provided to Township staff by the owner, or the agent, I should say, indicating that the offending structure was a prefabricated building identified as a deluxe playhouse lofted barn. This was manufactured by Old Hickory Buildings. It's a company. Furthermore, as my appendix D does indicate, the general notes indicate that the offending structure is classified as a minor storage building. The offending structure is a single-story building that currently has a total floor area of 35.6 square meters, which roughly again translates to about 384 square feet. And this was indicated on the site plan submitted as part of the minor variance application. The owner has retained the services of Mr. Richard Taylor as his agent. I do believe he's on the call today with us. As the request of Mr. Taylor's submission, a pre-consultation meeting was conducted on May 8th, 2023 at approximately 3 p.m. Notes from the meeting indicated stated, and this was attached as one of the appendices and as part of this report, that township staff support the development of a tiny home on the property, effectively reducing that minimum square footage down to 384 square feet. And this could be done by virtue of a minor variance application. As per the appendices also show, it was agreed to in the minutes by all parties during this meeting that a revised site plan, which was to be, to scale and detailed, would be required to accurately depict the proposed tiny home in relation to lot lines and wetland boundaries. Furthermore, it was discussed as per official plan policy that if the revised site plan determined that the structure would be within 120 meters of a provincially significant wetland, which is present on this property, or within an area of natural and scientific interest, which it's called ANSI, a scoped environmental impact study would be required to demonstrate conformity with the official plan policy. Township staff further received an application for a minor variance on May 26, 2023, and a subsequent payment of the application on July 14, 2023. The application package did not include a scoped environmental study, and the revised site plan mainly reiterated the information provided in the preliminary site plan that was used during the pre-consultation meeting. There were no setbacks also indicated with respect to wetland boundaries. This application is subject to the 4 tests of a minor variance as outlined under the Planning Act, and I'm going to go into detail about all 4 of them. So test number 1, is this application minor in nature? Well, the type of relief being sought from Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw is essentially to reduce the minimum required square footage from 1,050 square feet to 384 square feet. In light of the Government of Ontario's 2019 guidelines on the development of tiny homes to increase affordable housing across the province, Township staff, and I strongly emphasize this point, we do maintain support for the development and consider the reduction in the floor area minor in nature, provided obviously the intent of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw as well as the official plan are being upheld. Provided the requisite permit approvals are obtained and all other supporting information is provided, the subject application presently before the committee's consideration is considered minor in nature. Test number 2, is the application desirable and appropriate? So based on assessment data provided by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, overlaid onto the GIS mapping, uses along North School Road, which this property is subject on, are typically for residential uses. North School Road is also a public road that is maintained by the township and it receives treatment during all seasons of the year. As previously mentioned, the property is 6.9 acres in size. The development of a single-story dwelling unit alongside any future decks and accessory structures, whatever it may be, would not constitute any form of overdevelopment of an existing lot of record, as the lot coverage provisions are pretty generous in terms of how much of the lot can be developed. Despite the revised site plan, however, there was no inclusion of any lot coverage calculation either. It is unlikely, however, that the owner would not be able to meet those lot coverage regulations under the rural zone. As indicated by Appendix H, there are several farm properties existing with potential livestock facilities within close proximity of the subject property. However, in accordance with the minimum distancing separation formulae, and the guideline is number 12, there are 4 or more intervening non-agricultural uses that are closer to the subject livestock facilities than the subject property. Therefore, the development generally conforms with the minimum distancing requirements. Therefore, based on the analysis above and pending receipt of a supportive and completed conceptual site plan and scoped environmental impact study, it is the township's planning opinion that the subject property or the subject application is desirable and appropriate for the site. The third test is, does this application conform to the intent of the official plan? According to Schedule A1 of the township's official plan, the land use designation of the subject property is currently rural. Policies under section 3.1 of the plan govern uses within the rural designation. Limited residential uses are permitted within the rural designation, and as such, the development of proposed tiny home on the subject property conforms with the policies under section 3.1 of the Township OP. According to Schedule B1 of the Township's comprehensive, not comprehensive zoning bylaw, official plan, and this is attached as Appendix J, a vast majority of the subject lot is comprised of provincially significant wetlands, as well as areas of natural and scientific interest, ANSI. These features are considered environmental protection land use designations in accordance with section 3.7 of the Township's official plan. Furthermore, section 3.71 of the Township's OP states, it is the intent of this plan that lands designated as environmental protection on schedules B1 and B2 take precedence over the designations shown on land use schedules A1 and A2. Furthermore, section 3.7.31 of the Township's OP also states, no development or site alteration will be permitted within a significant wetland. Development and site alteration may be permitted within 120 meters of a significant wetland or a wetland that has been evaluated by the Ministry of Natural Resources. If it has been determined that there will be no negative impacts to the feature or its ecological function via an environmental impact study. Furthermore, Appendix K is an aerial imagery provided by the local conservation authority indicating that the proposed development is taking place within that 120-meter buffer of the provincially significant wetlands. The minor variance application package provided by the applicant did not include a scoped environmental impact study to evaluate the proposed negative impacts of such significant wetland features. And as such, the subject application does not conform with the policies under section 3.7.3.1. Additionally, the same, I don't want to read through all of the policies, but the same rules also apply for areas of natural scientific interest. If the development is taking place within the ANSI areas or within 50 meters, I would say that the official plan policy reflects that a scoped environmental impact study would be required as well. As such, it is the Township's planning opinion that the subject application does not maintain the general intent and spirit of the official plan. And finally, does this application conform to the intent of the zoning bylaw? The subject property is currently zoned as rural in the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw, and as per section 6 of the bylaw, which applies to the rural zone. Single detached dwelling units are a permitted use within the rural zone. In accordance with the applicable zoning regulations outlined under section 6 of the bylaw, the only relief required here under this zone is section 6.2.6F, which would be reducing the minimum floor area for one single story dwelling unit from 97.5 square meters, which roughly translates to about 1,050 square feet, to a total of 35.6 square meters, which is 384 square feet. Therefore, it is the Township's planning opinion that the subject application upholds the spirit and intent of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So all in all, this application does not satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance. Additionally, the application must also satisfy the policies outlined under the provincial policy statements and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. I won't be discussing all of the policies that apply here because it would just be a reiteration of the information that I provided here. However, without that scoped environmental impact study, I don't believe that the policies as they relate to the provincial policy statements are being satisfied, nor are the policies in the growth plan either. So in conclusion, I want to make it again clear to the committee and members of the public, as well as the applicant, really, that the Township is in support of Mr. McColl's application to reduce the minimum required square footage of the new building. However, given the natural heritage features that are adjacent to the subject lands, and in accordance with both provincial policy and official plan policy, which my work under the Planning Act must have regard for, an EIS, which is a scoped environmental impact study, and I'm saying scoped because the key emphasis here is not a full-blown environmental study, just a scoped one, will be required, even if it is again a scoped one in nature. This was what was agreed to in the pre-consultation meeting, and as such, this requirement would ensure that the development meets good planning principle. Therefore, at this juncture, staff are not in a position to recommend approval of this application, as two necessary components are in need in order to offer approval, one being the environmental study, and two, a revised site plan in accordance with the findings of that environmental study as well. And that concludes my report to the committee.
Thank you for the report, Aria. Is the applicant or agent present with us today?
Good morning. My name is Richard Taylor. As indicated by Mr. Hijazi, I'm the lawyer acting for the applicant, Mr. McCall. Mr. McCall is also present. Mr. Hijazi didn't make reference to communication I had with him last week, and I reiterated it again by way of a communication yesterday that we sought a deferral or an adjournment of the application to address the content of the report. The two aspects that we want to address by way of a deferral is the issue of the proposed environmental impact statement, and also reference to an enhanced or more refined site plan that would be undertaken in conjunction with that environmental impact statement. A number of items, though, in terms of the deferral request. Number one, we do want the opportunity to assess that. There were subsequent events that occurred following the pre-consultation session. You do have some communications from the Conservation Authority, who attended to the subject site, engaged in a rather comprehensive review in terms of the site features. As indicated by Mr. Hijazi, this particular proposed building envelope, which is reduced from your standard building envelope, is not within the PSW. We're only talking as to whether or not it's within the 120 meter buffer area. And the 120 meters, of course, has a point of commencement and an end to it. It's based upon old mapping associated with matters and not a direct site visit. The existing mapping is based upon aerial interpretation and not an attendance to the site. As indicated, there was an attendance to the site, and the Conservation Authority could not indicate nor identify any adverse impacts that would be represented by the proposed building envelope in any aspect. And if you look at the policy context that is of concern, and I might note that items 1 and 4 of the minor variance test, whether it's minor or whether it conforms with your zoning bylaw, is not at issue. It's just the policy context in reference to whether or not an EIS is required. At this point in time, we have no demonstrative evidence that there's any adverse impact upon the ecological features of either the provincially significant wetland or the ANSI. In other words, the building envelope is effectively at the outer reaches of the buffer area, if in fact that's accurate. But we're prepared to ask for a deferral to recognize that and to evaluate that particular aspect, to consider the scoped EIS. My client is pursuing this because they wish to achieve affordable housing. The property is vacant. We're proposing a small habitable dwelling. I'm using that phrase as opposed to tiny homes. In Peterborough, there was a front page Examiner article today about tiny homes. And for any of you who are acquainted with the tiny homes project in Peterborough, it is not a habitable dwelling. It doesn't fulfill the requirements of the building code. And one of the aspects of the report that appears to be missing is we've committed to having a full habitable dwelling. And it's been a challenge because apparently we're the first. We're the first in your township, and I've made inquiries, and apparently we're the first in the county in terms of a small habitable dwelling to achieve affordable housing objectives. And so that's rather intriguing in its own aspect, because it's 2019 that there was a clear direction from the province that municipalities should be moving towards the development of policies to facilitate affordable housing. So in the policy context, I'll address this if and when it comes back. But I can indicate to you that quite clearly, your township and the other townships in the county and the city of Peterborough have not been up to speed within the context of implementing policies to achieve small habitable dwellings. And the third aspect in terms of our request relates to a prior owner. My client acquired this property from an individual who made an application for a building permit for a 1,050 square foot dwelling to meet the zoning bylaw requirements and would not have to engage in environmental impact statement. And it was in the same building envelope. So contemplate that. Here you have a larger building being placed as of right in the same location, and that particular applicant, because it doesn't trigger a land use application in any aspect, gets to have that as of right building without any land use impacts or assessments whatsoever. Now, my client is pursuing affordable housing because they have financial circumstances that we've indicated to the municipality are strained. That's a component in terms of affordable housing. I'm going to digress and make reference to another application that I had. An elderly lady in the Ganaraska Forest wanted to construct a 10 by 20 foot enclosed porch. Estimated cost of construction, $20,000. But because it was within the Oak Ridges Moraine, the natural core area of the Oak Ridges Moraine, cost of the study, $50,000 to $100,000. $50,000 to $100,000. Now, there's something wrong with the land use process when the process itself is more costly than the actual construction. There's something wrong with the land use process when, in fact, the costs associated with the proposed development pale in comparison with the cost of the studies that would be required. And from the standpoint of dealing with matters, we want the opportunity to assess this and are asking for a deferral as it would relate to the foregoing. However, we have made inquiries of Mr. Hijazi and others, what's being done to achieve the provincial policy directive to have small habitable dwellings and affordable housing achieved. You've got a zoning bylaw with a minimum lot building area of 1,050 square feet. The question is, why? Why? You know, my client should be allowed this in the same manner as someone coming forward to seek an approval for 1,050 square foot building. They're seeking to reduce the developable area. And that's the message I wish to convey to your municipal council. Everything is upside down in terms of the planning process. The planning process does not take into account going smaller. It doesn't. It contemplates growth, getting larger buildings, more units, more lot area associated with development being approved. It does not have a planning regime that addresses going smaller. And yet the provincial policy statement and the policies that haven't been referenced deal with energy conservation, deal with affordable housing, deal with other aspects that are complemented by this particular type of application. So we do wish the deferral to address the two items, the only two items that have been identified in the report as of concern. But my message to this township is, what are you doing? What are you doing in terms of your policy development in reference to small habitable dwellings? Are minimum lot areas for floor areas even justified in your zoning bylaw? And if they're justifiable, then look at the requirements, look at the standards. The third aspect in terms of the deferral request, unfortunately, we didn't receive the appendices in terms of the report. We received the body of the report. I would like to receive the appendices in terms of having an opportunity to review them. And that's the third aspect of the request for the deferral. So from the subject of the report and the reference to it being an offending structure, we've already corresponded with your township and your township CBO in terms of that particular aspect. This particular structure has not been constructed on the site. Section 1, Section 2, and Section 8 of the Building Code Act talks about construction and installation. It does not talk about placement. And Mr. Hijazi talked about placement and used the word placement in his presentation. We agree to disagree in terms of whether or not a building permit would be required for the placement of that particular structure. It hasn't been installed on the subject site. We have made it clear we want to have a full habitable dwelling. And even that aspect, because there has been a lack of progress at the local municipal level, even that aspect has been really challenging because we want to develop approaches that would allow for example, a Cinderella toilet system, which apparently is not even known to Peterborough Public Health, and they have to evaluate that, although it's approved under the Ontario Building Code Act. But those particular features need to be incorporated from the standpoint of any design of this structure. We've made it quite clear from day one, this is going to be a habitable dwelling. We're not seeking any deviation from that particular requirement of your zoning bylaw or under the Building Code Act. But because we are the first, it's been a challenging process.
Thank you very much for the comments, Mr. Taylor. They've been noted. Just a comment from our side. Our staff deals with the bylaws that are on the books right now. I understand your frustration in terms of whether it be local municipalities not moving fast enough on this issue of tiny homes. Unfortunately, it's not been something that we've dealt with here at this municipality. And I understand that you are quite a proponent of it, but I hear from a lot of people that are not proponents of it. And that's what we're trying to balance here as a council. So yes, we have not made that decision. And I don't think we will make that decision until we're comfortable making the right decision for the residents of our people. So we'll just leave it at that, and I'll move on. So is there anyone present here today wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Not hearing any, well, we've had comments from the agent. I'll open up to the floor, the members of the committee for comments or questions. Mayor Martin?
Yeah, so like Mr. Taylor said, they're pioneers here, and their thoughts here on tiny homes are, you know, I understand what you're saying, and it is the topic of discussion around the province. And I'm sure this term it'll come up with our council and when we look at our zoning. But right now, this doesn't go with our zoning bylaw, and it's too small. Whether it's 1,050 square feet, even if it had been a minor, it's not minor. It's 350 square feet or whatever, 384. It's a lot smaller than what we allow here. I totally understand what you're saying about the rest of the municipalities within the county not dealing with it, but it's a difficult thing to get into because, like you say, not everybody is on the same page. So that being said, I do think during this term it will come up as a discussion, and whether we alter what we have right now, I don't know where it'll go, but it will be a public process that we go through to see what people's thoughts are. But for today, I don't see any reason why we would defer this because it doesn't fit in. I don't even really know why it came forward. So I'm just going to make a motion that we deny this application.
Oh, I have a motion on the floor from Mayor Martin that we deny the application. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Doherty. Any comments or questions from the members of the committee before I call the question? Councillor, comment.
Only one other question, you know, looking into the small ones. What about water? What are we just toting water, or I understand about the toilet system. I have a friend actually who has a biodegradable toilet. I understand that. But what about water?
Through to you, Chair, I will allow the applicant to provide that insight. I believe it would be through a drilled well.
Is that correct, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, that's correct. And there have been various options as it would relate to potential storage of water as well, in addition to the well system. And just a comment in reference to the report as it would relate to whether this would qualify as minor, your planning assistant has made it clear that they would view this as minor and view conformity with the zoning bylaw as achievable. It's just the policy context in terms of the EIS and also the scoped site plan in relation to the EIS that was identified as a concern. And we've asked for the deferral in that context.
Thank you for that. So once again, the motion's been made by Mayor Martin, seconded by Councillor Doherty, that we deny this application. I'll call a question. All in favor of the motion? That motion is passed. Thank you for that. We'll move on to minor variance number 4, which is Sergey Lachinsky. Sorry, that's not right either. Rick French.
Yes.
No, that's wrong too. Mike Barati and Lori Manley. I apologize. I didn't know.
Through to the chair. Application A20-23 for applicant Mike Barati and Lori Manley. Thank you very much, Bianca. Owners of part lot 19 concession 7, having a municipal address of 177 Fire Route 49. The purpose and effect of this report or this application for minor variance is to seek relief from section 4.37, 11.2.1 C, as well as D, and 4.10B subsection A of the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 1995-42 as amended to permit the reconstruction of an existing screened porch intended to be converted into living space and the addition of a height to an existing recreational dwelling unit. This application will have the following effects. Number 1, reducing the high watermark setback as per section 4.37 of the zoning bylaw from 30 meters, which roughly translates to about 100 feet, to 5.8 meters, which is 19.2 feet. Number 2, reducing the minimum required front yard setback to reflect that 5.8 meters or that 19.2 feet. Reducing the minimum required side yard setback as per section 11.2.1 subsection D from 6 meters or 20 feet to 5 meters, which translates to about 16.2 feet. And number 4, permitting the increase of a deficiency as it relates to the height of the existing recreational dwelling unit. The recommendation of my report is that minor variance application A20-23 be deferred for the next Committee of Adjustment hearing. During the posting of the notice for this application, it was determined that the site plan submitted was inconclusive. A revised site plan was submitted. However, there was not enough time to recirculate this application in accordance with the regulations under the Planning Act. Therefore, it is a recommendation of this report that this application be deferred until the following open session meeting in September. Township staff, I do believe, are in support of the application. It's just those the circulation requirements will not be able to be fulfilled before the September meeting. So this essentially the recommendation is to defer it for the next hearing. And that concludes my report to the committee.
Thank you for the report. Area is the applicant or the agent with us today. No, we're probably not gonna have any comments. Is there anyone present here today wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Second time, anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of the application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Not hearing any comments from the public, I'll open up the floor for members of the Committee of Adjustment. We have a recommendation from the plan. Somebody moved by Councillor Flagler that we defer this application. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Clement. Comments or questions? All in favor of the motion? And that's passed. Thank you. Move on to our next minor variance, which this time is French.
Through to the chair, application A21-23 for applicant Rick French, owner of Part Law 26 Concession 11, having a municipal address of 182 Fire Route 89C. The purpose of this minor variance application is to seek relief from Section 4.40C of the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 1995-42 as amended, to permit the development of a sleeping cabin above the required maximum gross floor area as per Section 4.40 subsection C. This application will have the following effects, and there are two of them. One, increasing the maximum required gross floor area of a sleeping cabin from 29.7 square meters, which translates to about 320 square feet, to 46.4 square meters, which is 500 square feet. And number two, increasing the maximum required floor area of all accessory structures or buildings from 75% of the total floor area of the main building / dwelling to 78%. The recommendation of my report is that minor variance application A21-23 be approved with the following conditions: that the development be completed in accordance with the site plan submitted, that the development meet all setback requirements pertaining to hydro easements and sewage systems, that a shipping container presently located on the subject lot is removed, that a building permit be issued within 18 months of the approval of this application, that a 20-day appeal period lapse prior to the issuance of a building permit, and that the balance of this report be received. As the development is taking place on Jack Lake, this is outside of Crow Valley Conservation Authority's watershed jurisdiction. The application was circulated to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, as well as Peterborough Public Health. As this application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and conforms to the PPS, as well as the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, it is the recommendation of this report that the application be approved. And this concludes my report to the committee.
Thank you very much for the report, Aria. Is the applicant or agent present with us today?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am. I only have one question and.
Sorry, sir. Sir, just before you begin, can we get your name, please?
Oh, Rick French.
Yep, thank you.
No worries.
Yep, go ahead.
So again, good morning. The recommendation is great, and I really appreciate the efforts of the staff there. The only thing I have a question with is the shipping container that is there contains items that will be going into the bunkie, and I'm thinking of timing more than anything. If it was possible to remove, because I want that shipping container gone just as much as everybody else does, is it possible to delay the removal of that until I can put the stuff in the bunkie?
Aria?
Through to you, Chair, I would say that there are no time frames in terms of the condition. Therefore, I guess, I would err to our chief building official in that regard. However, in terms of just working with you on how long that would take, that would be something that we can definitely speak in relation to. If Travis would like to add anything.
Through you, Chair. The shipping container is not a permitted use there, but as a temporary, if there's some items there that are going to go into the bunkie, then it's going to go after that. I really don't see an issue with it.
So that's the only reason for it being there now.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, Mr. French? I guess so.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Apologize. So is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time?
For you, Mr. Chair, I wonder if you get clarification on how long the sea container might be required.
Mr. French, did you hear that question? We're just wondering how long, if you had an estimate on how long it might be there.
My hope is that we can have the bunkie constructed by basically next summer is what my hope is. So that would be until the container would be gone at that point in time.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you for clarifying.
So once again, is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of the application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Not hearing any, I'll open it to the floor for the two members of the committee of adjustment. Okay, Councillor Clement.
No, through you, as long as the as long as the shipping container is gone in the future, I would make a motion to move this.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Did you want to set a time frame to that? Do we want to put a,
No, like, I think it's only reasonable that it's being used for storage, so as soon as the bulk is done, then I'm sure Mr. French would agree that it would be gone, sorry, area.
yeah, Ari, go ahead.
Through to the chair, I was going to say that there is a time constraint in terms of the building permit be issued within 18 months, and that is pretty standard in terms of the committee's minor variance application. So I do believe that that 18-month period is that allotted time frame required before the variance lapses. Just that's for more, just for your information.
So the bunky's got to be gone in 18 months, are you?
No, the.
Or not the bunky, the container. I apologize. Sorry, Mr. French. Yes.
Through to the chair, yes,
The
yes.
storage container will be gone in 18 months. Okay. So you're willing to move
Yes,
that?
I'm willing to move
Okay,
that.
so we have a motion from Councillor Clement to approve the application, seconded by Councillor Flagler. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you for that, Aria, and we'll move on to our next one, which is A2223 Sergey Leshchinsky.
Thank you all.
Through to the chair, application A22-23 for applicant Sergey Leshchinsky, owner of part lot 16, concession 6, having a municipal address of 95 Fire 25. The purpose and effect of this minor variance application is to seek relief from sections 4.1E subsection 3, 4.37, and section 12.2.1 subsection G of the Township's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 1995-42 as amended to permit the development of an accessory structure in the form of I believe, a sauna. This application will have the following effects, and there's 3 of them. 1, reducing the minimum required side yard setback for accessory structures as per section 4.1E subsection 3 from 3 meters, which is 10 feet, to 1.5 meters, which is 5 feet. Number 2, reducing the high watermark setback from 30 meters, which translates to 100 feet, to 27 meters, which translates to 88 feet. And number 3 and final, increasing the maximum lot coverage as per section 12.2.1G from 15% to 24%. The recommendation of my report is that the application be approved with the following conditions: that the development be completed in accordance with the site plan submitted, that the development meets all setback requirements pertaining to hydro easements and sewage systems, that a building permit be issued within 18 months of the approval of this application, and that a 20-day appeal period lapse prior to the issuance of a building permit. The development will be taking place within the watershed jurisdiction of Crow Valley Conservation Authority. They have been consulted on this application, who currently do not share any concerns. A permit from their office is anticipated. This application was also further circulated to Peterborough Public Health, as there is an existing sewage system to the north of this subject lot. As this application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and conforms to the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, it is the recommendation of this report that the application or the subject application be approved. And this concludes my report to the committee.
Thank you very much for the report, Aria. Is the applicant or agent present with us today?
Yes. Good morning, Sergey Leshchinsky here. No comments on my side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leshchinsky. Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone present here today wishing to speak in favor of the application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, I'll open up the floor for any questions from the members of the committee. None? I have a question. Aria, this property's designated seasonal residential.
Through the chair, I do believe that it's zoned seasonal residential. Yes.
I see the lot coverage is going from 15 to 24, and I know we have a policy stated earlier today that we usually don't go above 15. So I'm just wondering, what are the extenuating circumstances with this application?
Through to the chair, I do believe that the existing structures will bring the lot coverage above that 50% allocation, regardless of whether or not this sauna is to be constructed or not. This structure is about 160 square feet, so the change in the proposed lot coverage would be extremely minimal. I do think that reflecting on the growth plan policies in the rural areas under the growth plan, and this property would be captured under that. In the rural lands, and a lot coverage allocation of 25% developable area is permitted, so it doesn't conflict with any form of provincial policies. And also, again, the existing structures will bring that lot coverage already above that 15%. So the change in terms of proposed lot coverage would be minimal.
Okay, I'm just for clarification, I'm not understanding. The pre-existing buildings you're going to say are going to take it above 15%. So why does it say 15%?
Through to the chair. So 15% is allocated in the seasonal residential zone. I do believe that I would have to go back and do the calculations, but as my understanding is that the current structures, all of them, like the decks included and the dwelling unit, would bring the lot coverage already above 15%. So it would be roughly sitting around like 23% or something like that. As currently, without the sauna. The sauna is just bringing it up to about like 24% or something. The report does stipulate that it does go to 24%, and a lot of that lot coverage allocation, which is above that 15%, is reflective of the current standards on the property.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comments or questions from the members of the committee? Someone prepared to make a motion? Mayor Ryan, go ahead.
So I'll make a motion that we approve application A 2223 with all the conditions.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the convention from Mayor Martin. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Flagler. Any comments or questions? All in favor of the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry, it's Pat. Yeah, I didn't have enough hands, so. And that motion is passed. Thank you for that. And we'll move on to, I believe, our final minor variance. So Thomas James Clark, take it away, Aria.
Through to the chair, thank you, Bianca, for putting it up on the slideshow. So the application A23-23 for applicant Thomas James Clark, owner of part lot 12, concession 7 and 8, having municipal address of 105 Fire Route 75M. The purpose and effect of this minor variance application is to seek relief from sections 4.10BA, 4.37, 11.2.1 subsection C, and 11.2.2 of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw, 1995-42 as amended, excuse me, to permit the development of an addition to an existing detached garage, as well as an addition to an existing uncovered deck, a new screen porch, and a covered deck. This application will have the following effects, and there's 4 of them. 1 being permit the increase of a deficiency as it relates to the existing dwelling unit and its accompanying lakeside decks and porches. 2, reducing the high watermark setback from 30 meters, which translates again to about 100 feet, to a maximum of 12.1 meters, which translates to about 40 feet, as well as number 3, reducing the front yard setback again to reflect the 12.1 meters, which is 40 feet. And finally, number 4, increasing the maximum floor area of all accessory buildings or structures in the seasonal residential zone from 75% of the total floor area of the main building to 133%. The recommendation is that minor variance application A23 or A23-23 be approved with the following conditions. Number one, that the development be completed in accordance with the site plan submitted, that the development meet all setback requirements pertaining to hydro easements as well as sewage systems, that a building permit be issued within 18 months of the approval of this application, that a 20-day appeal period lapse prior to the issuance of a building permit, and that the balance of this report be or the balance of this information in this report be received. The development will be taking place within the watershed jurisdiction of Crow Valley Conservation Authority, and a permit from their office is anticipated. This application was further circulated to both CVCA, so Crow Valley Conservation, as well as Peterborough Public Health. Knowing Mr. Clark and how diligently he works in terms of, just getting everything and working with township staff, I'm sure that consultation has taken place with both agencies. They have stressed that they do not propose any form of concern in relation to the development. As this application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and conforms to the provincial policy statements as well as a growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, it is a recommendation of my report that this application be approved. This concludes my report to the committee.
Hey, thank you for the report, Arya. Is the applicant or agent with us today?
I am Clark.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Do you have anything to add, or do you have anything to add to the planner's report, or?
Only the area said Crow Valley is anticipated. It has been completed.
No, Crow Valley. Okay, Arya, we've received that.
Through to the chair, I do believe so. I just wanted to stress that consultation with both agencies has been done, and they have not stressed any concerns or anything whatsoever.
Thank you for that, Mr. Clark. Thank you, Arya. Is there anyone present here today or online wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of the application? Mr. Clark, go ahead. Okay. Okay. Thank you for those comments. Second time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? So I'll open up the floor for any questions from the members of the committee. Mayor Martin, go ahead.
Comment. The one thing I just picked up on is the Crow Valley, the measurements for Crow Valley for the garage say 26 by 30, and your application says 28 by 30. It's just something that, if you look at the numbers on the Crow Valley report there, it's just, I'm sure it's a simple thing, but that should be corrected with Crow Valley if they don't have an issue with it. So
I don't think that will be a problem.
no, like it's just something to make sure they drive. That's all. I just noticed the numbers don't look. I had to go back and look at the
letter.
I thought it was 28.
It says the garage is outside of the regulated area.
Yeah.
So it isn't an issue.
Okay. All right then. So just before the application is done, I would just make sure those numbers are the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyone want to move a motion on this?
I know.
Councillor Flagler.
Thank you. I will move.
That's moved by Councillor Flagler that we approve the application, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor of the motion? And that's passed. Thank you. Thank you, Ari, for the reports today. Very well done. I'll now take a motion to adjourn the public meeting and return to our regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Flagler and seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And over to you, Mayor Martin.
All right, then. Thank you. Okay, Arya, we're back to you for a final report of the day from you, and that's the planning report.
Thank you.
With regard to certificate of validation. So go ahead.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. That is correct. The subject of this report is a certificate of validation application. Usually consent applications under the governing authority, which is Peterborough County, would be B- such and such. In this case, it's V-2-23, and the property owner's last name is Coole, C-O-O-L-E. The purpose of this report is to provide background information regarding the proposed certificate of validation and to seek the requisite direction of council. And my recommendation is that council advise Peterborough County Land Division that the township expresses no objections to the subject application for certificate of validation, being references application V-1-23, provided the following. Number one, the approval of this application is examined and supported by the Director of Planning at the County of Peterborough, and that the balance of this report be received. Certificates of validation are kind of, we rarely see these. They're more or less, just to break it down 50 words or less, it's to rectify past planning violations. Okay, at some point in time, if a development had taken place, subdivision control kicked in through the Planning Act, these certificates offer a rectification. It's pretty much just correcting a bad title. So the township has received an application for a certificate of validation under, and this is under section 57 of the Planning Act, and it's being referenced as application V-2-23. Under section 57, subsection 1 of the Planning Act, a council that is authorized to grant consents have the ability to issue what is referred to as a quote unquote certificate of validation. These certificates state that a prior contravention of a subdivision control provisions of the Planning Act are deemed to have never had the effect of preventing the conveyance of land or the creation of an interest in land. So in other words, a certificate of validation, again, corrects a Planning Act contravention that has already occurred in order to reset the chain of titles. Oftentimes, these corrections, and this is just for the information of council, these corrections result in validating past Planning Act errors. As per the attached guidelines on certificate of validations, the authors of the guide note that validations of title involve legal ownership of the title, and not usually planning related matters are addressed. So planning related issues aren't ever, well, I don't want to say ever, but they typically are not associated with certificates of validation. So in other words, rarely are there any planning issues involved with these sorts of validations. Furthermore, section 57 of the Planning Act used to require that no validation could occur without compliance with the prescribed criteria, which are set out in regulation or Ontario Regulation 144-95. The prescribed criteria were that the property owner conform with the official plan and zoning bylaws. This requirement has now been repealed in the new in the current Planning Act. So given the information above, it is the township's recommendation that council forward to Peterborough County Land Division, citing no objections to the application, provided the Director of Planning at the County of Peterborough vets the application and supports the approval of it. And that respectfully concludes my report to council.
Thanks, Arya. And you're right. I had to look back to see, I don't remember seeing one of these before, so I wasn't really sure what it was, but I'm sure one has crossed the table in the past. So what's council's, there's a recommendation here. It's pretty straightforward. So
Yeah, make a motion that we move the recommendation of the planner.
okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb. Do you have a seconder? Councilor Doherty seconding it. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, all right then. So next item on the agenda is delegation and presentation. And if we could get that out of the way before lunch, it's Tracy, welcome from Fire and Ice.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to see everybody. I apologize for that. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Tracy Bertrand, as indicated, and I'm representing the Chamber of Commerce today. I was a volunteer member of the board of the Chamber of Commerce and treasurer at the time of the Fire and Ice Festival 2023. And in attendance with me today is Chamber Board member David Sharp and festival manager Amanda O'Rourke. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Here we go. All right. So the Chamber of Commerce would like to formally recognize the 2023 Fire and Ice Festival was funded by the Federal Economic Development Agency of Southern Ontario. Quickly, a bit of history just to go through what we've been doing. Sorry, 2 seconds while I just kind of gather my thoughts here. So the evolution of the Fire and Ice Festival started in 2018. As you can see on the slide, there were 2 festivals executed in 2019 and 2020, and the festival was then canceled for 2021 and 2022 due to the pandemic. In 2023, HBM Proud Committee partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to write a grant for the Tourism Relief Fund in order to reignite the very successful Winter Festival. So the Havelock Chamber of Commerce was one of the key partners in the endeavor for this, as they needed to be the applicant to write the grant. We were in charge of doing that. We then hired a festival manager, and we had 100% oversight on the planning, execution, and reporting of the Fire and Ice Festival. The other key partners are listed here today, and we would like to give mention to them, of course, HBM Proud, the committee of volunteers who put an awful lot of work and number of hours into the execution, planning, and development of the Fire and Ice Festival. HBM Township, thank you so much, and your EDO for assistance and the other work that had been done by HBM staff. Local private sector businesses could not be done without our local businesses. Havelock Lions Club, the Havelock Seniors Club, along with, of course, as mentioning again, the Federal Economic Development Agency of Southern Ontario. Too many buttons, here we go. So the festival brought together all levels of government, which was really amazing to see here in Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. On the opening ceremonies, we had federal MP Michelle Ferrari, we had MPP Dave Smith, Warden Clark of Peterborough County, Mayor Jim Martin of HBM, Deputy Mayor Hart Webb, and of course HBM Council present. Regrets were received from both the chiefs at Curve Lake and Hiawatha First Nations, so they were aware of the festival, and unfortunately both had time elsewhere scheduled, so they weren't able to attend. So we wanted to identify the connection to the strategic initiatives and just remind council how the Fire and Ice Festival aligns with a bunch of different strategic initiatives. It all starts and aligns strategically with tourism being a major economic driver in Ontario, also in HBM, and that this festival supported the Government of Canada's priorities to grow and support and adapt the current tourism product. We were fortunate enough to have 2 years in the Fire and Ice Festival, so it was a product that could be adapted and was successful at obtaining the grant. It supported HBM's economic development strategy and tourism strategy as well in promoting the township to visitors, residents, businesses, and investors. From a chamber perspective, the festival also supported small business and has a strong influence on economic prosperity and the growth and development of community economic development. We had a few priorities that we identified, and we were very proud to share that diversity, equality, and inclusion was a priority for the Fire and Ice Festival 2023. It positioned Havelock to welcome visitors from everywhere of everyone, a place where all were accepted and welcomed with a smile and kindness. So the execution, I cannot stress enough how much goes into the execution of this festival. And I myself learned about that in 2023, being a part of the Chamber of Commerce. So the execution it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of manpower. So we prepared the FedDev Tourism Relief Grant. That in itself probably took us a good 40 hours alone. Preparing a grant such as that, it's quite substantial and it requires a lot of investment. We were awarded the grant and we received $80,238, which is amazing to see that we were able to do that for such a small community. We prepared the final FedDev report, and that FedDev report is it's a prerequisite of getting the funding. And the report was approved and we received the final funding and received all of the money from FedDev. We oversaw the hiring and leading of the project manager, which we called the festival manager. We oversaw and verified all financial components of the festival. In your packet, you have documents documentation of both the expenses and the revenue lines. We partnered with HBM Proud in order to execute. The chamber itself executed the opening ceremonies on behalf of HBM Township and the Fire and Ice Festival, and we liaise with all levels of government as well. From an HBM Proud Volunteer Committee, the execution was probably much more difficult than what we had to do at the Chamber of Commerce. They assisted in the grant preparation, as did your EDO, and we really appreciate that support. They created extensive safety plan, established a volunteer protocol plan, managed the outdoor rink and all volunteers, secured all partnerships from local businesses, prepared all financial documentation, which was reviewed by the Chamber of Commerce, myself, the treasurer, assisted the event manager with the FedDev final report, which was huge. And that report requires a lot of time. They executed all setup, all takedown, and everything that happens during the day of the festival. And I would like to remind council that this festival was more than just one day. So there was other activities that took place in February that the HBM Proud Committee of volunteers took care of and executed on behalf of the chamber. So that's part of the execution. Another priority, which was important to us and important to HBM and the chamber and the Fire and Ice Festival, was the support of Truth and Reconciliation. We consulted with First Nations, and we were proud to have the traditional opening ceremonies where we celebrated and recognized the caretakers of this land. So to the results, and this is probably what council would like to see. So the results, we saw a 42% increase in visitation. This is a substantial increase in visitation, which was really nice to see. 2,800 people were in attendance, and this is on the day of the festival only, so that's a one-day piece. The federal, provincial, county, and municipal leaders were all in attendance. National, regional, and local media coverage were here on the day of the festival. 29% of those visitors are from outside of HBM. So over 1/4 of the people in attendance were visitors outside of our own township. 812 of them traveled over 40 kilometers to get here to come to the festival for that day. And we saw an increase of 83% from 2020. Folks of all ages and backgrounds enjoyed the free Fire and Ice Festival and had the opportunity to witness incredible hospitality of HBM and the place we all call home. So the economic impact, we did a TRIUM model, which is the tourism revenue and economic impact method that the Ministry of Tourism provides to us. The total economic impact was $228,743 for that one-day event. It was increased by 452% from 2020. In 2020, the economic impact was $41,422. The visitor spend is, it equates to around $394,800. That's using the Regional Tourism Organization model, where data is collected and they identify for us how much a visitor spends that travels more than 40 kilometers an hour, or more than 40 kilometers to get to the destination. And that is $141 per person is what's spent. So that's how we got to the 394,000. Remembering, of course, people that are coming to the region for a festival like this are spending money on food, gas, groceries. They could be staying overnight. They could be renting a place to stay when they're here. We created 2 paid jobs. We reported an increase. We were told by the local business owners that there was a reported increase in business revenue on that weekend, which is great to hear. And it's a testament for the amount of sponsorship that we received. Local businesses would not sponsor something that wasn't driving revenue on their end. We had over 843 volunteer hours. And that's probably not really realizing all of the volunteer hours that went into this event. And we had 175 volunteer hours just for the outdoor rink. So just to bring it back to the beginning, when the HBM Proud Outdoor Rink started this whole ball rolling of over 4 years ago, who would have thought that a grassroots initiative like this would lead to so much success? So the media coverage, I call that pride of place, and the media coverage is about the Fire and Ice Festival, but it truly is more about HBM. And the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen and the people that reside here and the hospitality that folks saw while they were here. We received national, regional, and local media coverage. For the first time, the Aboriginal People's Television Network posted about and did a series or a story on the Fire and Ice Festival. Global News, National Network, The Star, The Examiner. Overall, we take into consideration social media as part of this. We saw over 10,000 views on Google Maps. So what that tells me is people were looking at the Fire and Ice Festival. They wanted to know where it was. They go to Google Maps to identify the direction and where they need to attend. So seeing 10,000 views on Google Maps is a really great indicator of the interest of the Fire and Ice Festival. We have over 2,000 followers on Facebook. The Winter Post reached over 100,000 people. I do want to let council know that because of funding, we were able to enhance the marketing efforts. And by enhancing those marketing efforts, we saw these dramatic numbers, which is nice to see. And 17.5% or 350 people of those social media followers are youth. So it was really nice to see young folks partaking in learning about the Fire and Ice Festival. So to the financials, and in your packets, you have a detailed summary. On the slide, I've just put it into one simple summary. So the grant that we received was $80,238. We received local business sponsorship of $15,402. The other revenue that we received could be through Eventbrite when we were selling tickets, could be through donations, is $5,790.27. Paid staff equated to $15,247.50. And then all other expenses for the festival was $74,400.28 for a total amount of expenses of $89,647.78 and total revenue of $100,430.27. So the difference being right now $11,782.40. So I'm happy to take any questions. Should you have any? I'm just gonna close this a little bit so I can see.
Thank you, Tracy, and to the committee. It was a great day. This financial statement is something that, you know, we've been waiting for a long time, and I'm sure it'll be, I think the detailed one is on our website too, so people can look at what was involved in running this. That being said, there's you know, with the federal grant, it's nice to see that it's finally revealed, because we waited a long time for that. And I know how grants work as far as not being able to talk about it until they're ready to release it, the information. So it's too bad it took so long for that part of it. But I'm sure council will have some questions here or comments, but it's the detailed part of this is really good. And I'm, like I say, I'm sure the public will want to see a lot of this stuff to see what it took to run the show. So Kathy, go ahead.
So through you, Mayor Martin. So thank you for the report. It's a really good report. It was a good day. I do have some questions. I actually have about 8 of them. I'm going to do one at a time here and give my peers a chance. So how was the tracking done? Because it says on page 513, there was an increase of 42% in visitation, 49% of that being outside of HBM. And that sort of leads into my other question. You said they came over 40 kilometers to get here, but the boundary of HBM is more than 40 kilometers. So like, what's kilometers in HBM? Like where did you get that figure from? So I guess I'm really curious as where did you get the tracking figures?
Yep. Great question through you, Mayor. So the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport identifies that a visitor is described as anyone who travels more than 40 kilometers from a destination, the destination being the Fire and Ice Festival. So that $141 per person is what anyone spends if they travel more than 40 kilometers from a destination to their home.
Okay.
So it's not really geographically you know, it could be somebody within HBM or within the Peterborough County region coming to this area, to our specific village.
Okay. Next.
Well, we're just going down the line.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go around once and
I'll just go to the next point then.
Okay.
So the two paid created jobs? Where were those?
So the one was the festival manager and the other was the rink attendant, so that we had somebody managing the rink at all times. That was paid for by the grant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Beth, did you have any questions?
I did, but it's probably a silly one, because I just don't, you said that festival was free. And yet you have ticket sales.
So the ticket sales through Mayor, sorry, the ticket sales were for the event where we had Bridget in for a speaking event on the Friday night prior to the festival. So the festival was free, but the actual speaking event with Bridget was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
How is the attendance number arrived at?
So the attendance actually, HBM proud, thank you to the volunteers, are monitoring all of the people coming in through the doors. Everybody gets a ticket or a bracelet. So we wanted to make sure for the federal grant, but also to get a solid ROI, how many people are actually coming through on the day of the festival. So that's how we know that.
So everybody attended, got a bracelet.
That's
No, we didn't.
well, you were part of council, so thank you for attending. Really appreciate
I
it.
just didn't notice it at
Yes,
the time.
yeah, no, that's the
Thank
nice
you.
thing that happens with all the
Okay.
volunteers doing the execution on the event. You're welcome.
Yeah, we're going around.
So back to your sales, you've got an event, right? Ticket sales of $45 and another one for $83. That doesn't cover a whole lot of people, does it?
So no, it does not, but it wasn't just through Eventbrite. So Eventbrite would come in as people are booking online, but they could also not book online and purchase tickets with cash.
So you didn't have a lot of people booking online.
No, online is not usually the most popular way.
Fair enough. Next one.
You could just keep going.
Want to keep going? Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll,
So in the financial statement, I didn't see the 5,000 that we gave from here.
That's correct. So through you, Mr. Mayor, because we didn't manage that expense, I did not include it in that. It was paid for through HBM, so the chamber didn't actually manage that expense.
My understanding was the chamber was the person running this in conjunction with HPM.
That's correct.
We gave you the money, it went to the chamber.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I thought there was in kind of fireworks was paid for through HBM.
we were paying fireworks or whatever, Bob.
Yeah, that's correct. Through you, Mayor Martin, just to clarify, fireworks were purchased directly by HBM.
Okay, all right. Next question. So you purchased a laptop. The chamber purchased a laptop with grant money.
That is correct.
Why wouldn't the chamber not already have a laptop?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the chamber did not have a laptop. The chamber doesn't have a lot of assets whatsoever. In order to run the festival grant allows you to apply and purchase merchandise to run the festival. So the laptop ran the festival, worked with us the whole entire time, and happens to be an asset that the chamber can keep.
Okay. How many total events were held?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have to look to my team to answer that question. How many events were held throughout the entire month of February?
I believe there was 5.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, 5.
I think we started at the end of January, and I think that there was a function at the outdoor rink every weekend until the festival.
Okay, okay, so going to the rink management, the rink coordinator, we've always had an outdoor rink before. Why this year did we start paying out 1,800? And in conjunction with that, we spent 18% of grant money on 2 positions. Never had them before. We've had fire festival before. So I'm a little, was this job posted? Was it made available to the public?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So part of the grant expectations and priorities is that you drive jobs. So we were able to hire people to help with the festival. When you receive a federal grant like this, you're allowed to hire. You aren't, if you're running a festival and you're doing it all on volunteer time and volunteer hours and minimal money, you can't afford to hire somebody to actually do the work. So we could afford to have somebody to do the work. We were making sure that it was executed in a way that would keep the rink as safe as possible during this time through the entire piece. And it is well noted that It's critical for a festival like this. If you're going to run a festival like what we ran in 2023, a paid festival manager is an absolute requirement. So it is part of the federal grant that we received. And it was all approved by the FedDev Agency of Southern Ontario.
Okay, the last question, page 521, you have 2 consecutive lines for PJ marketing. Why 2 separate lines?
So those were just 2 separate invoices. So the first invoice would have covered the first part of the marketing, which would be it's coming soon, happening now, register, and then afterwards would be just a second line that came through as a separate invoice on concurrent and executing more marketing.
Then, sorry, last question, promise. So this whole financial audit, or whatever you want to call it, is it available to the public?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so this is not necessarily an audit, it's the actual expenses and revenues that we must submit through the federal grant. And it is, from my knowledge, on your website now.
Okay, thank you. I'm done, sorry.
Curious, roll length, $3,565.15 per internet. Per month?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, that's for the year.
Oh,
Yeah, just to further.
Sorry, through you.
There is a Wi-Fi installation at the chamber kiosk on Highway 7. So we were able to use this grant to purchase Wi-Fi so that can be like a location for the festival. And so we purchased the Chamber of Commerce, wrote into the grant to purchase the Wi-Fi system. And this is pretty great for the community because it now means it projects down the farmers market way. So now all of the farmers market vendors are able to utilize a point of sale system using the Chamber of Commerce's internet.
And just for clarification, we kind of run that through economic development. That's where that come from, Jerry.
well, I'm okay with that. My question really is this is disguised as fire on ice through the chamber. And then these are the expenses for fire on ice. These are not really the expenses for fire on ice. This is in conjunction with Chamber of Commerce then, right? So there are some side benefits to the grant, which we reaped as well, I guess, which is good. I was just curious because that's quite an expensive Wi-Fi service.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, not really expensive, just so that you're aware, we were actually had a really great deal by Rural Links. Thank you, Rural Links. But what happens when you apply for a federal grant like this, you take the opportunity, like you said, to purchase assets that can be used year after year. So there's a few things in here that can be used year after year now moving forward for the Fire and Ice Festival. Which is great. So the chimney is an asset that can be used year after year. So when you have an opportunity to apply for a grant like this, and they give you these opportunities, you certainly find ways to enhance the product in such a way that year over year, you're enhancing the product more than just 1 year for 1 year.
To you, that's great. So where are the assets of Fire on Ice? Where are they stored? Whose name are they? Like, are they chamber assets or are they Fire and Ice assets? And so there's going to be some of these expenses I take that next year we won't have, right? Because some of these are pretty sizable here, like we have a lot of things. My dime is the assets are retaining are long-term. I think they, in my view, be nice if they were broken out so we could say, yeah, these are long-time purchases, and as opposed, because this is going to be something that keeps on giving, I gather. So just an observation, that's all. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the assets are owned by the Chamber of Commerce, and they will be held by the Chamber of Commerce, and certainly the Chamber would be using them year after year after year as well.
Which is good.
Yeah, it is good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder. Councillor Doherty, that's kind of where I was going in terms of what kind of capital assets were purchased, because I see we got 101,000, we've eaten through 89,000, so we're only left with 12,000, I take it, moving forward for this year.
So through you, Mr. Mayor.
Just in terms of that, to Councillor Doherty's point, what kind of, like when I go through it, I might see there might be $10,000 there of capital stuff, but I mean, the rest of it's got eaten up through one-time deals, right? So I mean,
So
did we do what we were supposed to do, or did we break the bank here?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think when you run a festival like this and you are able to do it correctly, you see the impacts through economic prosperity and the economic impact statements that we provided you. When you have funding to be able to do something like this, you can run it in a way that it needs to be done correctly to drive economic prosperity, to drive visitation. So the FedDev Agency of Southern Ontario wouldn't consider what we purchased as capital assets. Those are just assets that were required in order to execute on the festival. So any of those, certainly you wouldn't see an expense for something like that unless we wanted to build out more of, say, more chimneys each year as we go through. So yes, some of the expenses that you're seeing are a one-time only expense, with the understanding and the strategic alignment when we were doing the application to position the Fire and Ice Festival, the Chamber of Commerce and HBM with assets that can be used year over year.
Thank you for that. And just, but to that, as I said, there's some costs in here, like we got, I think it's $2,000 for ice carvers. And then we have a bonus that somebody I guess there was a competition for another 100. So I mean, to me, I guess we could offer them something, but if anything, for a Fire and Ice Festival, a lot of these things should be volunteer things. And if we're paying them $400 a day is quite a nice, I should get into ice carving if that's what they're making per day. I'm just saying in terms of that, like that's money we're eating up that we're not really getting back, right? In terms of moving forward. So I don't know. When I see things like that, I don't know if, as I said, it's great to make it look great, but could we have done the same thing with less money? Because I just looked at Summerfest over here that, that the Lions ran in conjunction with the township. And I don't know if the whole cost of that whole day would be $10,000. It'd probably be less than that, right?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important to remember that when we hire ice carvers or we hire people to do work, that's part of the economic prosperity that builds out, right? Getting people to volunteer all the time, their services is not building economic prosperity.
No, but to that, who selected the ice carvers then? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Because if we're just hiring friends and family here, then, how much of an economic benefit is that? It is to those families or friends, but to the whole community, not really, right?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what the question is. I know that these ice carvers are artists and they want to get paid for the work that they do. Ice carving actually was the most popular thing in our survey for visitors to actually see. So to get somebody to do the type of work that was done at the Fire and Ice Festival in regards to ice carving, you do have to pay for that artistic piece, right? And that's an attraction that brings people in. So to your point on the Summerfest, I'm not sure how Summerfest went. I don't know what the economic impact was of that, and I don't know the costs. So, when you're comparing a festival like this that's driving over 2,000 people through the door and an economic impact of over $200,000 and a full spend of over $329,000, it's a bit different. So you do have to kind of do it right.
I understand that, but just spending more money doesn't make it bigger. Like it does in a way, but in terms of the actual impact this can have on our community, you could have the same impact throwing less dollars at it. That's what I'm getting at.
I agree. You're absolutely correct. But when we get a grant and we're able to get the grant, we do what we can. I do want to say to council, however, though, that things like the ice carving and things like this took place the 2 years that the festival took place. They raised money to do something like that. You can't enhance a tourism product like this without money.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Okay. Sorry, that's okay. And this one's actually, so I direct the question to Dave. So You told me you had loads and loads of tubes left over, but you've got over $1,000 in here for tubes, and I know you're selling for $35 each. Give me the chart again, that Dave.
I'm sorry, what is your question?
Okay, well, why was there more money? You told me you had all kinds of tubes left over.
We do have tubes left over.
No, you told me you had tubes left over from the last one.
Right,
Right, so you've got another over $1,000 in here for more tubes?
correct.
Yeah, I would actually like to mention that.
Yeah, okay. All right, no, I just want clarification, that was all.
Yeah, we have like a, I guess you could call it a rolling inventory of tubes. That, you know, so now we have, I mean, I would have to take an inventory, but now maybe we have 80 tubes left for. And the tubes are really just something to build our brand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the toques would be part of the assets that we purchased so that we have some for next year as well.
Okay, fair enough. I know we had talked about, that's the only reason I'm asking. So yeah, that's fine, thanks. Different logos too.
Right.
Councillor Flagler.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin. Just a question about, is the chamber and the fire and ice, are they looking into grants for each year? Like to continue doing the grants? And if so, are the 2 staff members going to be continued to be paid? And is that going to be posted for other people that are interested in that type of a job?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So back to your question, I apologize, I didn't answer it. Yes, the positions were posted publicly, yeah, through the chamber. And we followed the proper protocol for hiring practices.
So do newspapers too, or whatever, or just on your.
The chamber typically does it digitally most of the time.
Just on your website.
And yeah, so they were publicly posted. To your question, so we don't know if FedDev is going to be issuing any grants moving forward. There is a tourism development fund that just launched. That is something we would have to take to the chamber board, which we haven't taken to the chamber board at this point, to my knowledge.
I do. We did write a second grant in April called the Experience Ontario Grant, which we were not successful in getting.
Okay, I was just curious. What's Hammered Out Fabrications?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if I'm correct, that's the chimney, yes? Yeah, so that was the chimney that we purchased.
Oh,
yeah, and that's a local business. Yeah, so we tried our very best to hire local businesses.
okay. So all those benches that you had down there, that's the benches that are in here that you purchased, like the picnic tables? Where are the picnic tables?
The picnic tables haven't been delivered yet. They're an asset of the chamber
Yeah, I
for
get
the
it.
festival essentially like next year.
Yep.
Oh,
We
okay,
just didn't receive them in time.
okay, okay. So those benches that were down by the, what would you call it? I just call it a fire pit.
Those were made by volunteers
Okay,
and they're just another, that's actually an HBM Proud asset.
okay.
They're just benches that are just.
Yeah, I noticed
Just
that.
have.
Okay,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do want to point out to the council, to your point on the picnic tables and other assets, because we didn't know that we were getting the funding almost until, well, it was after the festival.
okay.
We weren't able to actually purchase the asset, some of the assets like the picnic tables, and order them without waiting for the grant to be awarded to us.
Okay. Thank you. Very good report.
Okay, is there any other questions? So the late notice of the grant caused lots of problems.
It sure does,
Yeah.
yes,
It
and
caused lots of problems. So the questions from council here, and I think Bob has a question too. The reason we're so inquisitive and trying to find out, this is great to have this, and it's great for the public to see all of the, your financials and how it worked, because it was a community event. And the township did play a big part, whether it's in-kind donations or because that's not listed here, and we know public works and our economic development and all those hours aren't shown in here necessarily, just the part about the fireworks. So the township played a big part in this, and that's why all the questions, because we're working for the public and the public wants to know. So we're trying to get the answers that we've been asked over the over the last several months and probably years. Like, you know, everybody wonders how these things happen. They're expensive. And, you know, we did what we thought we could do to help make it happen. Looking back, you know, there might have been some mistakes. So anyways, Bob, you had a comment there?
Councilor Doherty.
Okay.
While you're on that, so you wrote us a check, the municipality for $1,590.37 for rental of the arena.
That is correct.
That's correct. Yeah. And that was for the, like, that day, or it was something that happened over the month?
Yeah, that is correct. We were at a little bit of miscommunication there. We were under the assumption that the arena, the use of the arena would be donated like it had been in other years. So we were just received a bill and paid it.
Thank you.
Okay. Bob, you had something?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Tracy, if you may, please summarize the grant application with respect to how it was received and when it could be announced.
So that's a great big question, actually. I'm gonna have to go back in the Rolodex in my head. So FedDev will announce when you can start applying for grants. They give you a short window to turn around a grant that is probably 45 pages long that needs to be prepared. And then they say, thank you. And please wait until we go through all of the grant applications and award let you know if you're going to be a grant recipient. So that takes, it probably took 5 months, 4 months, 3 months to do that. So then once you receive your confidential communication from the federal government that you are a grant recipient, you are not permitted. So nobody is permitted to make that public knowledge. It's part of the contract that you sign when you apply for a grant and you accept the grant. You are not permitted to make it public knowledge until the government of Canada or the government of the province actually make a media release and talk about it. So the media release itself didn't come out until June, which was months after the Fire and Ice Festival. You know, and from a federal government, provincial government kind of standpoint, they had a lot of applications for these particular grants. And they have them happening between a certain period of time. So you had to have it done by March 31st, 2023. But you could submit an application for something that took place even before February, but you don't know if you're actually going to get the grant. So I think part of my summary would be, when federal or provincial grants are out there, unless you have a bankroll in order to start the process rolling, to start things moving along, you can't actually do the work that needs to be done. We were fortunate enough that there was a bankroll, that HBM Proud did have some funds in their docket in their bank account to help us help us move forward. The chamber had some funds to help us move forward, but we were taking a risk because we weren't confident. And you don't know until you get it in writing that you're actually going to get the money. So the HBM Proud committee, this is where some of the challenges are, had to within weeks do all of the planning and finalize everything, because until we knew for sure that we were getting the grant, we couldn't put a stamp on a lot of the things. We almost lost our keynote speaker, Bridget, because we couldn't pay her even though we had everything going. So these types of grants are scary, but they're never going to change. I'm manager of tourism for Haliburton County, and these types of grants, this is what happens. You have a short period of time to apply for it. If you do not have a supporting agency like the chamber or a municipality as a partner in doing these types of grants, I can honestly say I don't know that HBM Proud would be successful at getting the grant. So having a municipal partner co-apply if it's permitted within the grant, or having somebody like a not-for-profit chamber of commerce co-apply certainly helps festivals like this to be awarded the funds. Does that help, Bob?
It does. Thank you for that summary. Just a quick follow-up question through you, Mayor Martin. In your work, you clearly had great experience in dealing with these types of grants. Can you please clarify for council? Should the grant be announced prior to the media release, does that put your funds in jeopardy?
So through you, Mayor Martin, absolutely. You will lose your funds if you break the confidentiality clause. We can ask for special permission, but I even had to get this PowerPoint approved by them because I was using their logo. So you absolutely cannot say anything at all until they give you an express email that says you are now permitted to communicate that you are a representative part of it, and you will lose your money.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, you know, you'll see later in the agenda, we're dealing with some things that happened over the last few months, and so, and that's unfortunate the way things work, that you deal with it all the time. You, like Bob said, you deal with it. These grants get announced when the province or the federal government is ready to announce them. And this one took till June. That being said, you know, we helped do our part. And, you know, looking back, I don't know whether we did right. We felt we were helping the community. But we'll deal with that later in the agenda. But I thank you for this. This is good. This is what we need. You know, when you're using, because there is a lot of taxpayer money in this, as far as the in-kind part isn't shown, like I said, and so you could probably, you know, put a good number on, you know, public works and some of the other things that happened in there. So I think moving forward, you know, we need more time. We can't react as quickly as we did last time. Things, it just doesn't work that way anymore. You can't do those things. So as a municipality, we need lots of time to deal with any issues that are going to pop up, and we can't deal within a month. There's no way we can do things. So just keep that in mind as you move forward to try and do this again. You know, it's going to take a lot to, there's a lot of money invested here, and how it was spent, I think, has been talked about. You might have to readjust how you're doing. If you don't get any grants, you might have to readjust how you move forward to make this thing work for another year. So.
The review, Mr. Mayor, if I might, I think in the resolution it stated there might be a staff report coming out that might be able, because I didn't put in the in-kind because I know
that's fine.
Yeah, so that if on that staff report that's following that might be great.
And that's fine. I just wanted, like, you know, this was big, like, you know, like I think, you know, this council seen how important it was for the community. But that being said, the way the process works, we have to be more careful moving forward, and we'll deal with that ourselves. But thank you for this. This is good information for the public to see and for us to see. We needed to see it. So I thank you for it.
For council, the Tourism Development Fund was just launched last week, and the closing date is September 14th. So if the chamber moves to apply for this grant, we will have to have it completed in less than a month. And we don't know if we'll hear from that as well. So we'll keep you posted on things like that. Also happy to entertain a co-funding application with the municipality if that works as well.
Okay, that was economic development. See where things go.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, okay, thank you for the delegation. So with that, I'll look for a motion to receive the delegation. Moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that is carried. So thank you very much for today.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to look for a motion to break for lunch. Moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? That's carried. I'll look for a motion. Oops, okay, now I'll look for a motion that we resume the meeting after lunch. Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so the next item on here is staff reports for information. I'll go through them. If there's anything you want to speak to, speak up, or we'll just pass it a report for information. So the building activity report for June. Building activity report for July. Lock drinking water system inspection report.
We're gonna, if you want to finish them all and then go back, or?
Well, no, just to stop me if there's something you want. So, go
Just,
ahead.
through your chair, question to Travis, the filed permit for the minor variances now, is that similar to the other system we have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it is. So we have it for the building permits. Last year, we also went ahead with the planning and we're starting to now utilize it for that.
Now, does this save us time or the client time or the combination?
The combination of both.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, the next item was the drinking water system inspection report. And the final item, or no, there was two more, the treasurer for the one investment update. And the final one is active report 2023 year to date. If there's no question, the motion
Up here, please. Made my notes on the paper.
I do too, but I don't have. Okay, so if is there anything in those items that anybody wants to speak to? If not, I'll take more.
Go ahead, or I'll try and find mine.
Yeah, I just like to make a comment on the economic development report. Very well done, Sherry. A lot of info in there, as you can see, coming out of COVID, we're right back into celebrations and festivals. I think I counted 6 or 7 on there we listed, so she's got all the ribbon cuttings for new businesses, as well as UCIP applications. So thank you for that report, very thorough.
Is there any other comments around that? If not, I'll take the motion to receive the balance of the. Go ahead.
The investment report.
Okay.
Good, thanks. We got the returns and how much money. Can we do a motion now? Or does it have to be after we receive the reports to get some additional information?
Speak to it now and.
All right. I'd like to make a motion that because I think it's an integral part of the budgeting process is to get the reserve and reserve fund reconciled so that we know where we are in terms of surpluses and what we got to deal with, because I think we have a lot of projects coming up on it. If that's possible, I'd like to make a motion that we have it for September 5th meeting, because that's pretty much starting. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess Lionel could.
Through you, Chair, the reserve and reserve funds are reconciled. So are we looking for a listing of the current balances? Is that what councilors are?
Through you, Chair, I think we're looking for what's in there and what have we got reserved for, because to deal like with the investment report, it says we got $11 million. We don't. It's some of that spent. We're just waiting for the work to be completed. I want to know is what are the reserves and what's it for? So that we know whether we have the money going forward for these projects, and is the project still on the books to go ahead? Because budget time's coming up. I guess it's to kind of crystallize everything to, I guess, to put some brackets around the $11 million, because that's not investments we have because we got a surplus of cash. That is projects that we've already completed, or we made reservations for future projects, either long-term or short-term. I'd like to find out what the chemistry of that number is in some detail. That's for my, I don't know what the rest of council feels, but for me, that's an individual. They can, guess if I can't get a seconder, we don't need it.
You already put the motion on?
Yeah, you got the motion, yeah. Seconding it.
Is that, sorry, through you, Chair, is that help? Well, I don't.
Future, I think so. So just make sure that what everybody gets what they're looking for. So we would have balance of the reserves, the commitments based on current and prior year's budgets, what's already been approved by council, and then what is quote left over after that. Is that close or?
Well, yeah, but we have hypothetically, we need to fire $1 million. We're not going to spend $1 million that year. We put some towards it because with our asset management, we do. So we need, it's nice to know what we got towards what. Because we're going to do another asset management report as well.
And future, I think the asset management portion is going to be so key. I think prior in the last 3 or 4 years, that what you're asking for is something that perhaps hasn't been done as often as maybe it should have been done. What we are working on right now is getting, the wheelbarrows of money. A lot of municipalities are going towards consolidating reserves where, that may give municipalities more flexibility in what they spend. But I think what this council and what my thought is that to be open and transparent, it would be good to have more information for each one. For instance, the admin reserve, the wheelbarrow, there's a lot of money there. So what exactly is it for? So that's something I'm working on now as well. And we can do that before the asset management study is done. And the asset management study will of course crystallize, okay, so we want to have X amount this year, that year, because in 2030, we're gonna need this truck and that truck. And then once that's decided, okay, we need this much every single year, then we say, okay, then for 2027, this is the range of the fire reserve that we should have. So we can get part of the way there, but in terms of getting like a very good crystallized range to what each reserve should be each year, the asset management study is going to be really important in getting those numbers, because right now the system we have doesn't have enough information to provide that.
I shouldn't have mentioned the asset management report because it's not really, it's important, very, very important, but I'm more considered about balancing the $11 million that we've indicated here in the report that we have. What do we spend it on? What are we going to spend it on? And break it down so we actually know, because maybe we'd like to shuffle the deck here and some of these things. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying is if we have the information, I think we're better informed, but that's just me. So I've seconded the motion. So if you can get I want to give you the correct direction or thoughts of what we're looking for, because it's hard to prepare something if you don't know that.
So whatever you can, like, if you can get most of that, it would be helpful. And yeah, a lot of those things, like Jerry's saying, it's not all just projects. It's the one I always use is the water treatment plant in the arena. Like, we put away so much money to replace some boards in 25 years. If they're $1 million to replace, that's where what's in there. And it's just I don't know whether you can get the exact numbers, but to help us understand what these reserves are. And like you say, if you can do it with the admin reserve, any information is going to help us moving forward as far as when you get this project complete that you're trying to finish here. So I know you're working on the reserve policy and what's there, and it's coming, but anything you can do, I don't know whether you can do it for the September meeting, but if that's okay, if you think you can give us something by then, if that's a realistic date, that's a good, well, that's good. Jerry?
But the motion is for September 5th. Why not? So are you saying we want to move that on now?
No, I'm just
on the motion.
Well,
so
I just want to support Lionel if it's possible to have it for September 5th. I support the resolution or the motion. I just don't want to pass something and then it's not a realistic date. So
Future, I will have a report, and if there's additional information that isn't in it that people need, I'd be happy to bring another one.
Thanks. So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor for September 5th. Any other questions around it? Call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. So, thanks, Lionel. All right then, and that's it for, if I could get a motion to receive the balance of the staff report for the meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconder. Councilor Clement, all in favor? And that's good. Okay, so we're gonna move into staff report with follow-up action, and the first is Waste Connections, the one-year renewal. Peter, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Martin and members of council. We're here today to obtain council's approval for a one-year extension to the current agreement with Waste Connections of Canada for curbside garbage collection and transfer bin haulage. Recommendation that council approve a one-year extension with Waste Connections of Canada for curbside garbage collection and transfer bin haulage from September 1st, 2023 to August 31st, 2024.
Any questions or comments? If not, I'll look for a motion. There is a recommendation here.
So I read through and we talked with this one.
Motion of the recommendation. Okay, moved by Councilor Clement that we move the recommendation for the one-year extension. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Councilor Doherty seconding that. All in favor? And that's carried. The next item there is the report for the Connecting Link program for intersection upgrades.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. The purpose of this report is to obtain council's approval for staff to proceed with awarding the traffic light work at Ottawa Street and Concession Street intersection, and council approval awarding the completion of adjustment to all maintenance lids, adjustments to 16 catch basins, completion of concrete work, sidewalk ramping with AODA steel tactile walking indication plates at Highway 7 and Concession Street intersections.
Okay. Always good when we can get a grant for Connecting Link. Save us paying for it ourselves. The lights long overdue. need the upgrade, and I have heard from constituent around the accessibility part of it. So hopefully with what you have planned there, it'll make him happy with that intersection and the lights. So okay, so
Sorry.
go ahead.
So Peter, just one question. So these, we discussed both of them. I'm sorry, when I was asking my questions earlier. This thing for the, what do you call them? The sidewalk ramping, that's little bubbles, isn't it? So it makes it easier for wheelchair accessibility?
It's through you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Perfect, okay. So if I can make a motion, okay.
Okay, moved by Councilor Clement that we move the recommendation. Councilor Doherty, seconding. Okay, any other questions? All in favor? And that's carried. And next item here is community awards ceremony. It's got your name in it?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, this report presents an option for council to hold community recognition award ceremony. It has been the tradition in HBM to have a ceremony in the first and third years of each council term. Ceremony was postponed during the years of COVID. But it seems now that we can go ahead and have this award ceremony if council so chooses. The Havelock Chamber will be having a award night ceremony, but the date has not yet been announced. So council may wish to either combine the ceremony with the Havelock Chamber or do something different. This is brought forward for council direction.
Okay. All right, then I'll open up to council. It's one of those things we've been having these awards for years, and sometimes there's not a lot of input, but it is an onerous task for staff. As far as we always say, like, if you're bringing a recommendation for this, that you prepare the file, but it always ends up coming back to staff and the file gets prepared here. So anyways, it's a good thing to have, I think, to recognize people. This is a little different going through the chamber. So I have said, it's worth looking at. It is, we do one with the county too. And that's, I think, where things get kind of washed out as far as you try and pick who's received awards, because it's usually supposed to be new people or for different things. But it is nice to recognize our citizens. So there is, different ways of doing it. We can, partner with the chamber. We can do it on our own, or we could even sponsor 1 or 2 or 3 things on there, like Citizen of the Year, and let the chamber run it. There's all different models, but it's up to council here. I don't, Chair, do you have anything to add, or?
So yeah, we should set back.
Mayor Martin, the chamber had proposed that the combination isn't to blur the volunteer appreciation ceremony. Theirs would be a business excellence award, but they were thinking, because you're drawing in the community, that by having the 2 events, one before the other, whatever you felt was appropriate, having them on the same night actually might draw more community members to celebrate, but they would be distinctly separate events. That's how they.
So here, the last one, like it'd be pre-COVID. So can you give me an example of who was nominated the last time? Do you know?
Through you, Mayor Martin, I don't have the names of the last volunteer appreciation because it was pre-COVID. However, it was solely a municipal event. I believe Mayor Martin and Brian Grattan at the time hosted the event with pictures and banners, and it was a great event, but likely short in nature, because once you've presented, it's what do you do with your time. And so the notion by recognizing not only our volunteer, those valuable individuals that make so many of our service organizations tick, as well as our business excellent, that there likely is some overlap, because oftentimes our small businesses, those that really support the community, are those that are working closely with those volunteer service organizations.
So who does the nomination?
For the Business Excellent Awards, strictly chamber. For the volunteer recognition part, solely the council.
Oh, okay.
There's no overlap there.
There's no public.
It's the public that puts in the.
Public input.
Yes,
Yeah.
the council sets the categories, sets the criteria, and then we push it out to the community.
Okay.
The public nominee. So.
And what month is this normally held?
I believe the last ceremony was held in November, pre-COVID, for the volunteer recognition ceremony. The Business Excellent Awards, they haven't had them again. I think 5 years ago may have been the last one. Yeah, pre-COVID.
It should be after the deer hunt.
It is actually in November typically.
Okay.
Everything stops for 2 weeks in November, so. Anyways, so there's options here. I don't know whether it's something, it does take some time and we'll have to get on with it. So I don't know if anybody has any of these options that they prefer and they want to make a motion today, how we deal with it, or if you want to bring something back to the next meeting. I think that would be an option too, as far as discussed with staff, and probably the chamber as far as, how we could make this work. But if you got something for today, that would be helpful. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, just I guess assuming that we're going ahead with late September, that's when the event's gonna be held. I know we haven't set a date, but that's kind of what I'm getting at, is if we're aiming at that, we probably need to set a date somewhat soon. Because we're getting close to less than a month away.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I think the date has been pushed out for the chamber, only because we're into August. And I know that they're having some changes to their executive. So I think they're moving their date forward. So that November timeframe, which is typically when the volunteer recognition awards take place, that likely still fits. But you're quite right. It takes time to do a good job with these sorts of events. So we can have the direction and move forward. Great.
Okay, Jerry and then Kathy.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Sure, you said at the outset, and maybe I didn't hearing, but the chamber thinks we should do 2, or no, I wasn't just sure there. Maybe I wasn't listening properly or didn't understand.
No, that's through you, Mayor Martin. It was a notion that came forward in the fall of 2022. It's something that I discussed with our CEO Bob Bangioni about in terms of, would this make sense? I know that the chamber liked the idea because already we collaborate in terms of having representation on both groups, the Economic Development Committee as well as the chamber. And the notion behind it was to get more buzz around the two events, thinking that we might draw more community members in to recognize and celebrate both of the successful candidates.
Thank you. Okay. In the past, we've done 2 a term, and we don't usually do it the last year of the term. That's the first and third year. Yeah.
So through you, Mayor Martin. So Sherry, so you would have, basically, it's one event, but you're splitting it into the 2 categories. Is that what I'm understanding?
It would be, if you moved forward, it would be the Business Excellence Awards, which is a criteria set by the chamber, and then you'd have your traditional volunteer recognition.
Right, but we'd have the same day, same venue, arena or whatever, a couple hours presentation.
Let's say 7 o'clock for this aspect of the evening, and then maybe 8 p.m. for the next, something like that.
Okay, so one day, a couple hours, and okay, got it.
So the date hasn't been set. If we want to partner with the chamber on it, that can happen. If somebody has a different idea, or if we don't do it at all, that's another option. So we haven't tried this before, so I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know about the date being pushed back by the chamber, so I guess obviously that gives us more time than I was aware of. So I'll amend my previous thoughts, but at the same time, I think we should still be. I don't know, I guess, yeah, to your point earlier that we can have staff bring this back. I don't know why we're having staff bring it back because it's already here.
Yeah, all you have to do is.
No, yeah, I don't
We
want
need to set a date for them, so we can at least start.
Change the date, it's fine.
Yeah.
No, I meant council to come up, like, have more time to plan around this, but if we can do it today, it'd be better.
Well, no, and to the point, I think we should make a decision in terms of, as you said, whether we want to partner with the chamber or not. We can figure that out. But I mean, still, we're gonna have to have discussions about who's gonna get the awards as well. So, but I mean, just to help staff out, provide a little bit of clarity moving forward. Maybe we should make that decision today on whether, it's gonna be a joint event or solely a HBM event. Personally, we've heard it all. As said Sherry, the idea came about, and I kind of agree with it in a way. Because the last couple that I've been to, as I said, I was surprised that we had that many. We had, I believe 12.
That's correct.
Which is quite a few, it was more than I thought, but I also recall that ceremony ending somewhere around 20 to 8. So it didn't even last 35 or 40 minutes. So, and if, as I said to Sherry's point, if we combine the two, then we maybe make it more of an event, more of a night for people. We have a break in between for coffee or whatever, and as well draw more people. So if we're really trying to celebrate these volunteers and give them some recognition, wouldn't it be nicer if there's 50 people there to watch than 10? So that's all I would say.
To you, Mayor Martin. Hart, that's like a really awesome idea. I like it. My only concern is with the volunteers, I could see them coming just at 7:30 or 7:45 if that's when they're going to get their awards. Now, if you give their awards first, I could see them leaving. It is what it is. I know that for sure. People have time, but that's a lot of, I would prefer it if Havelock-Belmont-Methuen just did their separate. That's my opinion. So.
Question, so Deb's idea, what if we did like a Sunday afternoon, just like an hour in the afternoon or something, like, would we get more people, like, no, like just individual, like you say, the volunteers? If we just kept it HBM, do you think that would work? Like they just come in the afternoon versus the night? Like Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon?
Everything's an experiment, like, like it's in the past, I think they've been like on a Thursday night. It has been sometimes, some years you have more than others. When it gets to trying not to pick the same people over and over. So I think for today, if we could decide if we want to go on our own, we can do our own. If we want to to a joint thing, and I think then we can get the perimeters around it going once we decide what it's gonna look like. And the Citizen of the Year was another option I had mentioned to Bob one time there, as far as you could do it at New Year's. I mean, that's another option, but Jerry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not up to date on it, but is there just one volunteer, like one person or one company or one organization per category? Like, how many we're presenting, I guess? Is there two, one for business and one for volunteer? Or is there three, or is there several categories? I'm just not familiar with, because it hasn't happened on our.
You didn't get the award?
It's congeniality award, and just runner up.
Okay, Bob, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin, just to clarify further to Councillor Doherty's question, there were no categories in the community service awards. It was just a general recognition. As is written in the report, the awards are presented every other year to an individual, organization, or group of persons who reside in the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen and who have made a significant contribution to the community. So there were no categories. It was kind of a broad category, and nominations would come forward.
But there's just one of that group.
No, through you, Mayor Martin, there were as many as were submitted.
Okay.
Sorry, so going back to your last one, what did they get as an award? Just like a nice piece of paper? Plaque or something? Certificate, okay.
So
I think you're looking for a carrot, eh? You want people there, so
yeah,
you need a little something to make it worthwhile for them to come. It's the prize at the end of the thing.
Yeah, Councilor Flagler, go ahead.
Yes, actually, Sherry, maybe a little bit of thought on this, whether or not to bring it together, whether it be a weekend. I'm just thinking, in order to get people to come and to stay, like the stay is the big part, because once they get what they've come for, they leave. I know I've been to recognition awards in Peterborough, but they made us all sit. So of course, and then they did the whole thing and you stayed for the whole thing. You didn't dare get up and walk out. So maybe something like that would work good.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I think Councillor Flagler's onto something, because volunteerism is so vital to rural communities like ours. If you think of the services that are provided through these organizations, oftentimes there are services provided through the municipalities of larger centers, and volunteerism is on the decline. So I think this is an opportunity for us to invest in our volunteers, recognize them, celebrate them, and perhaps share some cost with the chamber on venue, on having some even local music. We'll work on the venue, like in terms of the talent, but something to have them to make an evening of it. And we can do refreshments and that sort of thing. There are a number of organizations that would be willing, I think, even to help volunteer with the serving aspect of it, so we keep our costs in line. But I do think that it would be worthwhile to try to really celebrate it and promote it this year. Whether it's a single event or separate, I think we need to promote it.
So yeah, so I think if you were doing a staff report right now, by the sounds of it, you would recommend that we try something different and we go with a joint thing with the chamber and see how it works. And maybe to Bev's point, we'll get with more there and Hart, maybe we'll get more people there and maybe it'll be more successful. The big thing, like you say, is we got to recognize our volunteers, because it's getting harder to get volunteers. So that might be a motion that we'd investigate going with a joint process there. Go ahead.
Further to that, through Mr. Mayor, I think it was discussed, but because it is going to be two separate entities giving out the awards, I take it. So we're going to make sure that that's aware to the public too, that our HBM awards are our volunteer awards, and the business awards will be donated or given by the chamber, not necessarily HBM. So
okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin, what we could do is certainly look for sponsors. Oftentimes these events are sponsored by local businesses, given the significance, so we could reduce some of our costs by going that route.
So for today, it might be the motion might be that we pursue a joint venture with the chamber on our award night, and And something can come back once the planning is done a little bit. We don't have to get into the planning today on how it's done, but maybe if we could have a successful venue for our awards, maybe this is what it needs, and it's worth a try. So if somebody wants to make a motion that we direct staff to work with the chamber on coming up with a plan for a joint first ever joint awards night for business and volunteers. That would work, I think, to move forward. So, and it sounds like it's going to be in the November area to give some time. If you can come back with a date, though, with us, but direct staff to look into a joint venture with the chamber for an awards night would be the motion.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with them because I've sat through Peterborough too. Nice tables, don't leave.
Yeah,
Exactly, so
we were confined and the chairs were like an auditorium and he was up on stage. If it's something like that, you will get people to stay because they're not gonna just
So that's
walk
what-
out the
yeah,
door
so
and
I-
people watching them.
yeah, so I'll make a motion. We work together with the chamber to put this on.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Clement, as a seconder.
Sure.
Seconded by Councillor Flagler. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. So we can put on their deputy mayor, gonna do a singing audition there. So that'll draw the people in for sure. Maybe Jerry will back them up. So. Yeah. Okay, all right then. So that's good. All right, so our next item here is a report from the CAO with regards to a closed meeting investigation.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Earlier this year, we were informed by the closed meeting investigator that a complaint had been issued regarding closed meetings of council. The closed meeting investigator did initiate a investigation, and the investigation has now been concluded, and we received the report, which is attached to the staff report. 3 meetings that were investigated were an economic development meeting of November 21st, 2022, closed session meeting of January 17, 2023, and a closed session meeting of February 7, 2023. It's important to note that the closed meeting investigator in their report notes that nothing nefarious took place in any of these meetings. Essentially, these were process issues and nothing else. At the meeting of November 21st, 2022, the economic development meeting, there was a first-time member of council who attended that meeting out of interest and out of a need to understand the process and understand what was happening with economic development. That member of council did ask a question in that meeting and did participate, and it was then noted that there were 3 members of council at that meeting, in which case that was then deemed a inappropriate closed session meeting of council. Staff is recommending that going forward, first of all, it's important to note that all of our committees meet in open session. They never have closed session meetings. But going forward, it's important to ensure that a maximum of 2 members of council will at any one time attend a meeting of any advisory committee. Staff is also recommending that all advisory committees of council are to meet in open session, which they have done and always will do. Meetings of all advisory committees of council are to be advertised on the township website at least 2 weeks in advance of the meeting. So that was another item that was noted. There wasn't sufficient notice of the meeting provided. Staff has since reached out to all of our committees to ensure that their schedules are brought forward as soon as possible, and all meetings will be advertised at least 2 weeks in advance in order to give everyone proper notice. The meeting of January 17 was a closed session meeting of council. And that meeting was held in order to, as we heard earlier today, discuss a grant application for Fire and Ice Festival. The meeting was held at the request of the chamber and HBM Proud. The grant had been received, as was explained earlier today, but was unable to be discussed in open session or out in the public, as an official announcement of that grant had not yet been made. And was not made until June, long after the event. Council was gracious in granting the meeting. And as you can see attached to this report, there are well over a dozen, or there are at least a dozen legal reasons for council to enter into closed session. One of those reasons was chosen, and the closed meeting investigator noted that that was an inappropriate meeting of closed session. They have not deemed the reason to go into closed session to be appropriate. It is noted, and it was noted that I did have a discussion with the closed meeting investigator. This issue has arisen in many municipalities, so we're certainly not unique in this matter. However, when you're trying to work through the minutiae of interpreting legislation, I guess occasionally you get it wrong, and I will certainly take full responsibility for that. It was my responsibility to determine the reason for going into closed session, and I did so. So I accept the verdict of the closed meeting investigator. The third meeting was February 7th. There was another closed meeting of council. That one was deemed to be appropriate with no issues. I think it's very important to note that at the end of the day, the decision regarding funding for Fire and Ice Festival was made in open session at the regular council meeting held on February 7, 2023. There was a very detailed resolution which clearly outlined the path to making that decision. And it's all detailed right there. It is in our report. So I do believe council was extremely transparent and there were no issues. Going forward, I will certainly be more diligent with respect to the municipal act and reviewing the act. However, again, I stress there was nothing nefarious that happened here, and everything that did happen was detailed in that resolution on February 7th. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And yeah, these are things that, it's the first time I've seen it. Like that being said, they've spoken and we'll abide by it. So if there are any questions or comments around this, other than that, I'll take a motion that we receive. Motion received. Noted by Councillor Doherty that we received this report, and seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, then. So the next item here, Bob, is the administrative AMP program or administrative monetary penalty.
Yes, Mayor Martin. This report brings back the administrative monetary penalty system. Earlier this year, council did vote to adopt an in-house administrative monetary penalty system for the township. There was a report back, staff did bring a report on June 20th. Council did not make a final decision at that meeting. So we are bringing back this report for reconsideration of council. Since June, staff has received some feedback from council with respect to the possibility of including an escalating penalty clause in the administrative monetary penalty system. So today staff is asking for council direction to implement the AMP system.
Okay. All right, then, what's council's thoughts? Explained by the CAO. So the recommendation here, there's two separate recommendations. And the one is authorized to establish an agreement with the county of Peterborough with respect to the enforcement of the parking regulations. County roads located within the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen, and the council directions requested regarding adoption of the required bylaw. So
through you, Mayor Martin, yes, to elaborate on the first resolution that is required through our work in establishing the administrative monetary penalty, staff has discovered that an agreement with the county of Peterborough will be required for ticketing cars on county roads in the township.
Okay. So there'll be two separate
resolutions is the request today.
The first one there, if somebody want to move that? Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb. Somebody want to second it? Councillor Clement, questions or comments around that? Go ahead.
So, okay, so we're gonna go into an agreement with the county. The county already does this, do they not? They have their own amp system? Don't they?
They're working
They're
on.
working on it too? Okay, so. They
So
don't have,
through you, they currently do not have an answer.
Yeah.
okay, but they're, so are they gonna go that same route with us, or we just have to go in an agreement with them that this is what we want?
No, through you, Mayor Martin, this is not an agreement with the county for the AMP system. They will have their own.
Oh, and then,
This is our AMP system.
just want clarification, okay, no worries.
Chair?
Well, if this is our system and we gotta go to the county. Sweet, what, let's just not ticket things on county roads.
Through you, Mayor Martin, that is an option.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, hey, sorry, if I'm through you, the whole idea was we'd have our own system.
Mhm.
Now we've just
Okay,
put mud in the water. It's,
okay,
that was my,
so do we just have to tell them then that we won't be ticketing on county roads?
If that's the decision of council.
Yeah, they can do it themselves.
So through you, Mayor Martin, there has been a large team working on this as noted in the report, and the gang's all here. So there are some of these questions I might get some help with. I think our chief billing official has a response.
But just through you to Councilor Doherty, some of those county roads, I know Mike deals with some complaints on them that we can't do anything about right now, and the county doesn't do anything about, so. As you come through town, we have George Street, and of course Quebec, and then Ontario Street, Concession Street, so it's mainly, I think, those roads as opposed to all of the county roads. If we ignore those, then we have no jurisdiction, that's all.
Yeah.
So once they, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, once they get theirs going, which they're working on too, they'll just have to take care of those roads. The complaints will come through us to them then instead of us dealing with it ourselves, right?
They don't have an enforcement arm.
No, but they're working on it now. There's something coming here and so because the big complaints are for us at the county, we get complaints around Tim Hortons and the parking of the trucks. They know they have to deal with it, so they will have to deal with it eventually. Like, I think there's two things happening here, but we can leave the county out of this for now until we get our own going, and then it can always be amended, can it not?
Through Martin, it can be, it is very problematic where it sits right now. I have a lot of complaints that are through George Street. And I have to put my hands, so I can't do anything about it.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Webb.
Yeah, well, to further to Mike's point, I was just gonna ask if it was possible. I understand Councilor Doherty's point in terms of the county wants to take it over, let's let them take it over. But until they get to that point, and I know I'm new at the county, but things might even move slower up there than they do here. So I'm thinking if we have this, I know, if we have this ready to go. Is there a way we can, as I said, I think implement this, and then once the county comes on, we can kind of peel off?
Give the county back to them?
Exactly. Is that possible? Like,
Yeah, through
so through,
there's a huge logistical problem with respect to that. A complaint comes through, then has to go complaint through county. Then it has to come through us. You have now 2 points of access point. Who's complaining to what and where, and then who's gonna have jurisdiction over that? As much as they'd like to have, are they on call? Are they gonna be there 24/7? Are they? There's a lot of logistical moving parts with respect to that. And then you have a little bit of overlap. So as much as I'd like to see them have an enforcement arm, the likelihood in the next little, I would say in a couple of years, I doubt will be there. They'll have to have people brought in place to come in to deal with those issues. By the time they get here, it'll probably be gone. So yes, well, it's all or none. So if you're planning to have it enforced on those county roads, then so be it. But then if they come in, then we can repeal it and then they can have it back. It can work both ways.
I think that's what you're saying, is that it'd be better to move ahead now, take care of our complaints, because the complaints come to us, they don't go to the county. That's one of the biggest things we've heard, right? It's that. first contact is here. So, okay, so. Yeah.
So I was, yeah, no, I was just gonna make a motion that we move ahead with the AMP program, but with, I don't like that stipulation. We monitor the county's activities and then possibly bring it back for modification. Down the road, once, if or when the county has their AMP system.
Yeah.
Deployed, but until that time, I think if we have it ready to go, we should be taking care of it, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, to me, everybody's gonna be driving to George Street because although that's the only place you don't get ticketed, right?
Well, we know who our representatives on the county, we'll just refer them to them.
And we'll just say, well, we don't have anything in place, so park there. So, okay, so there is a motion.
You get their voice now.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a second or before we discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, does anybody want a second, Deputy Mayor Webb's?
Through you, Mayor Martin, we have a motion from Deputy Mayor Webb and seconder Councillor Fleming.
Okay,
And now discuss.
all right, thanks, so go ahead.
If I may ask you, Mayor, it says that to get an agreement with the county, my fear is that we'll be talking about this in 2025. I don't know how timing is for the county. If they're going to get right back to us so we can proceed on with our AMP program, it would be great. But if they're going to take to 2000, that means that we get no ticketing system in HBM at all until we get the county approval. Is that what we want, or at least we would have something prior to that if we went alone and then maybe appeal it, or the county is moving forward with it?
No, through you, Mayor Martin, to Councillor Doherty, to answer your question. Pursuing an agreement with the county to ticket on county roads does not prohibit us from ticketing on other township roads. We can do whatever we want in the township that are our roads. So this agreement is strictly for county roads within the township of HBM. And we have had preliminary discussions. Somebody help me with this. I think our chief billing official or deputy has discussed with the county. We don't anticipate taking a year to get this done. Do you want to elaborate on?
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
If you can, please.
Yeah, so as it stands today, of course, any county road is enforced by the county of Peterborough. And as we've heard from Mike, not something that they do currently, right? So there may be regulations that are in place, but they really don't have the bandwidth to enforce parking regulations on county roads. So what we're saying is, certainly as it relates to the village, and maybe we could talk about beyond that, but certainly as it relates to the village, we should have the autonomy to enforce parking regulations within the village. And if we want to do it village-wide, we need to come to terms with the county of Peterborough. They got to delegate the authority to enforce parking bylaws, excuse me, on roads within their jurisdiction. So I've spoken to the public works manager. He's more than willing to advance whatever bylaws are necessary at the county level to make that happen. Of course, the county politicians would have to approve of that, but he's willing to advance that because he sees it as a positive, right? Enforcement on county roads will be done by a third party, right? So it's a win-win for them. And I think it's a win for us. Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Just so that I understand this, okay, so now we're gonna be doing the AMP program, but we can't ticket anybody on George unless we ask Peterborough for permission to ticket them?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what the motion would be.
Okay.
So we can do the whole bit. Sorry, Travis and then Jerry.
I was just gonna say, I spoke with Peter, the manager of roads this morning, and he agrees that it'd be a bonus to be able to ticket those ones on George Street, especially snow removal when he's there doing snow removal. Him and Ryan could both have a ticket book in the truck. They have issues there as well.
Okay. Okay, Councilor Doherty.
We keep referring to George Street and Concession Street. Does this not apply to 46, 48?
Yes, everywhere.
Well, that's not because you used expressly said the village, so I thought this is all encompassing. So at all county roads, we couldn't make the tickets unless we get their agreement. I'm still back to the same question. How long does it take us to get an agreement from Peterborough County? Is it imminent? Like, or is it going to be 24, 25? I'd like to move this forward, and I'd like to have it the best way. But if we're going to hold it up another year and a half, then why don't we go for the half a pie and then amend it? That's all I'm thinking. And
So will it be held up? Like, I don't see where it's gonna be held up.
Yeah, I think we're passing it, so when we pass it, you're still gonna be able to take it. Mile of memories and that, the only part that's gonna be held up would be the county roads, right?
And it may not be held up, it may be at the next meeting.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is that we're passing the whole thing, so the only thing that really should be held up would be. County roads, and to that point, I think with most county roads, the parking issues are gonna be here around town. I don't think there's any parking issues on 48 going out of town.
Concession Street is another one.
No, but I'm just saying they're around the village, right? They're not on the way to halfway to Cordova, and somebody doesn't stop and park their car on the side of the road for a day, so.
So as long as it's not gonna hold the
Concentrated in the
process up, I think the motion will help us get this thing going and
question.
so it should get things going, and I really don't anticipate it taking long coming to the county. Hopefully it's there in September and we can deal with it and get it done, so. So we have a motion. If there's no other questions, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So. All right.
Mayor Martin, we will still need the second motion.
All right.
The motion was to get the agreement with the County of Peterborough. We still need direction regarding
Okay.
adoption.
So
And
the pay
approval of
rates,
the pay rates for the hearings officer.
so that was the escalating
Correct.
piece. So, and I think it really needs to be there, or there's, to put more teeth into this is to have it escalating, so. So yeah, so number two, part of the recommendation here is, with regards to the, pay rates for the hearings officers, so. I don't have the numbers right here, Bob, but. They were reported in this, so.
Yeah.
So. The motion would be that we approve the pay rates that were provided to us. Okay.
That's first, I'll second it.
Do that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're moving it?
Yes.
Kathy, you're seconding it?
I just had to find it on the page.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
It's in there under financial.
Yes, I found it.
Have a mover and a seconder.
Yep.
Any questions around that? All in favor? That's yeah.
So through you, everyone, just to clarify, we will have an escalating fee structure, penalty structure. Okay. For a maximum, the AMP system allows for a maximum of 30 days. For an escalating, what's determined to be a repeat offender has to be within 30 days. Address that. Okay.
All right, so. All right, so we're gonna move into correspondence action item, and this was an item that was at county council last meeting, and it is a lengthy motion from North Kawartha with regards to amendments to improve the municipal code of conduct and enforcement. We can either support it or receive it.
I'll make a motion to receive it. Second.
Okay, motion to receive. All in favor? Carried. Okay, this item here is correspondence for information. Motion to receive by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councilor Flagler. All in favor? Carried. And then we move into activity reports, and do you have anything from the county? Art?
Quickly, last county meeting, August 2nd. Second quarter, our PKID report. Not much in there, and then the one thing is we had a presentation on, I don't know, we discussed this in an open meeting, I know I've discussed with some counselors. In terms of, we had a presentation about the problem of these floating homes or people building homes on the water. So I believe it was the mayor of Georgian Bay, Jim, made a presentation. So what, I guess the problem a lot of these municipalities are having is once these people construct these houses or whatever and they're on the water, they're actually, there's no way to regulate them because now they're considered a vessel. So they're protected by the, I don't even know what it is, oceans and fisheries, right, or something. So they found that loophole. So basically what the mayor is proposing is to lobby the provincial government to have these designated as homes, as a home and not a vessel. And then that way municipalities can regulate them and deal with them, you know, in the proper manner. But as of now, as I said, you have these people dropping them on the lakes and there's no real way for municipalities and even local police to enforce it because I think the enforcement agencies, the Canadian Coast Guard or something. So until this gets rectified, luckily it hasn't really come to our area, but I guess up around Georgian Bay in Northern Ontario, it's really starting to spread. So where they're actually just buying shipping containers and dropping them on floats. So I don't think that's something that our community wants to see around here. So just to give you a heads up, but hopefully that will hit the province and we'll get that change. So this problem can be dealt with. So besides that, a whole lot. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right then. So other items we have in here is Councilor Clemens provider activity list. And it's attached here. No questions around that. There was a meeting, Matheson Conservation meeting minutes from April 26th. And Police Service Board meeting minutes from May 4th. The Mayor Webb, do you have anything with that or? Yeah, so.
I don't even remember those meetings.
Get a motion to receive and then.
Yes.
Okay, motion to receive, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councilor Flagler, all in favor, and that's carried. I don't have any oral notice or written notice of motion. Is there any oral notice of motion to come forward today? Being none, moving to other business. And lots of, anyway, I don't think there's any there.
No.
So. Okay, so bylaws, we dealt with bylaws earlier. And no closed session, so I'll turn motion to the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councilor Clement, seconded. Councilor Flagler, all in favor, carried. Motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Webb, Councilor Doherty, all in favor.